Be bigger, where crimes are baked in every show. Mysteries rise and truth unfolding. Ready, set, it's time to go. We say it's time to go. Whistling truth, battering news, mixing stories, solving the lies. In this kitchen, secrets are broken. With a spark in our eyes. In the broken baker's kitchen, the secrets crumble like sunrise. We'll sit through clues to find the news. With a spark in our eyes. Broken rise. Broken rise. Welcome to the Broken Baker. Get ready. Let's go.
I'm Jimmy. How y'all doing?
The most important people in this case that everybody seems to have forgotten in this room is the jury. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and both sides take a pregnant pause and think about the jury.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whoever you are, whatever you are, what if any you might be, and welcome to which might be a little different show today because I've caught something, and it's not a fish. So I might be a little bit unstable today because I'm in a precarious situation sometimes. But Mo's here. Mo will be running the afternoon stream. I'll try and be here, but maybe Marissa will show up. Maybe Jess will show up and pull up the slack for me because, as Jamie says, why don't you work harder, you stupid idiot? And I say, Jamie, be nice. And
I am,
but
I'm the worst.
you are. And right now I am sweating like a whore in church. So yeah, it's going to be a good day because today will be day 2 in the Sarah Boone case. Today we'll see if we can keep the tempo going. 10 witnesses on the first day. Already had her body cam video from 2 different officers. We had the technical review of her house, what evidence they wanted to bring in, the suitcase, the bat, and the 2 bottles of wine, mega pint bottles. And
Yeah, those were a lot bigger than I guess I was thinking, because I think that's been kind of the question, like, how did they get so drunk? Like 2 bottles of wine, and these people are professionals. But it's really odd until he pulled out like the mega pint. I was like, oh, okay, well that explains a little more. And if you don't eat.
Mm-hmm.
No, it started Saturday night, and I've just been sleeping since then. And yes, let's just say we are not trusting farts in this household today. Hey, Canty. Hey, Brandon. What's a whore?
Abysmal over there, or I guess they would call it something else.
No, but it's not really. It's not like I have acid reflux or anything. I'm just. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Jamie. I'm just free flowing.
Yeah.
Got a math. This still doesn't make sense. What doesn't make sense? The 2 bottles of wine. That's what you get from going out in public. Jamie doesn't leave her house and she's never sick. It's maybe because, Jamie, do you have something you want to say?
What do you mean?
Do you have a thank you want to deliver?
To Penilla?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thanked her last night. Thank you, Penilla. You're the sweetest thing ever.
Really, really good for the grifting, Jamie. Thank you so much for the easy put up so I can sit here and say, oh, I was giving away blah, 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 blah. But no. Let's just
Why do you need me to grift it? So Panilla won some candy, but instead, her goodness of her heart, she said, no, give it to Jamie. She needs all of this delicious candy sent in her mailbox. So I got a fun little box of candy from Baker.
What have you tried so far?
I don't know. You had a Yankee bar in there. And we munched that down. And some kind of chocolate. I don't know what it was. I can't pronounce a lot of this stuff.
It is.
There's the Skittle paddles in there. I bagged a bunch of it up because I want to take it over to my parents' house next weekend because it's my dad's birthday. Because I want them to try some of this stuff too.
Oh, that's sweet.
I know, aren't I sweet? Because there was a lot of it and it's all for me. I thought I'd share the wealth.
See, that would be in my safe. I would not share. Yeah. I do not share.
Well, I kept the good stuff, the stuff I know I like.
It's
salted licorice in there though.
It's like 1.5 pounds of candy or something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Did you try any of the hard candy?
Not yet.
Which one did you get?
I think it's got a dirty dumpster rat on it or something.
Oh. the sewer sludge.
Yeah. I think it's red. They're red hard candies. Does that make sense?
A sewer sludge is a mix.
What is it supposed to taste like?
I haven't eaten them in, I don't know.
And they got looks like a chocolate licorice too.
Ooh.
I haven't tried that yet though.
And Sammy spills the tea, says, good Monday morning to everyone. Good morning, Monday morning to you as well. Hope you are doing swell. Someone is a palliative nurse. Is that someone who tastes stuff?
No, that's like the end of life care. So I think they call it palliative care. Sometimes they call it hospice, but I could be very wrong on this. But I think.
I was just thinking palliative. Your palate.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't speak English. Hospice just is also a palate cleanser then.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I need to send you a score sheet, Jamie, so you can rate whatever you tried. Have you had any of the spunk yet?
No.
Vanilla is really happy with the spunk.
I only ate some of the chocolate.
I am trying so hard to be a good human, and you're just testing me testing all the Jesus in me on a Monday.
Well,
this is entrapment, God. I would like to say if I say anything spicy, this is an entrapment.
Well, we have salty and fruity spunk. You can get both kinds. Hey, Rianne.
Mix it together and you have a great Saturday.
Yeah. Or 9 months, then you have trouble again. Paila Carissa, Tennessee Gym Fund, rock your day evening. Well, let's see if I get invited back to Tennessee. It's been, there's only been very little talk about it. So I don't know if they're going to try and do another meetup down there.
You're banned from Tennessee.
Well, I can't be served beer in Tennessee.
True. You are a very shifty character, you know.
You are.
We have
very shady.
A long-standing feud with Denmark, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Well, they don't recognize the Danish driver's license as an ID. Talk about shifty characters. Brandon says, do the V's hang out with dirty dumpster rats? Zach? The V's?
The whores.
Oh,
the whores.
Thank you, Jamie, for speaking, Brandon.
Yeah. Sorry.
But why not use W instead of V? Oh, he did
He
use
does.
W.
We don't use
Oh,
double V
okay.
in Denmark, so everything's a V for me.
Baker's just gonna
Oh,
make it difficult. It's fine, Mo.
Why have
I
that
don't
letter?
know.
You don't use it in any special. Where could be spelled with single V, just as easy as a double V. It's just to fool foreigners. And you complained that we have these 3 extra letters. I'm just saying, it's you guys who try to fool us. But thank you so much, Brandon. And Brandon, maybe they hang out at the Mouses here, but Valhalla won't take us there.
I can't believe that's a name for a strip club.
Well, I think Valkyrie might have an issue with, going to,
Nope.
if it doesn't even have good wings. Does it have good wings? Or
I-
meatballs? Or
I think it's because it's the people who couldn't make the midday shift in every other house is the one who is headlining the Mouses here. That's
so
why.
you're saying there's a chance. Moving to Tennessee, gonna make OnlyFans money.
Yeah.
Yeah, when my mom was in the hospice, those were some of the nicest nurses, and I liked. They were honest. There was none of the BS. My brother didn't understand it when they said, "Well, she's been expending a lot of energy, so you better enjoy this talk with her." He didn't really pick up on that. He said, "Oh, that's fine. I'll be back tomorrow."
Hmm.
Well, that was the wrong choice. You get palliative care while in hospice. Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah. I think those people that do that they have really good hearts, because
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
sister does that, and it's just like it's a different style, and it's a lot harder for people. So
Yeah.
to
Oh,
have
I read
somebody
a
there to
story.
handle that for you and help you out and be there is great.
I read a story where one of the hospice care units was in the maternity ward because it has like the bigger suites for delivery and things like that. And it was a really interesting concept, putting, kind of the end of life with the start of life.
Mhm.
And it was just a really cool concept. Like, oh, I can go here, it's quieter. There's not as many people. It's set up that you can have multiple people in there. And I just thought that was a really neat idea.
Mhm.
Melissa, I would love to come back to Tennessee, but if we're going to do another meetup, we need more people to meet up because last time we were lucky we had a few people, but it could be wonderful to get 20 people there.
Well,
More
this time
to
you guys tell me, I will be there. I will, get it with Mr. Mo. He'll have to be Mr. Mom. Hopefully, he doesn't get hooked on soaps and start eating Oreos and clipping coupons, but I'm going to be there next time.
good morning genitals. Double V, yes. I'm. If you know any girl with that measurement, I have a green card in Denmark waiting for her.
And her back
Okay.
surgery and the
Yeah,
shoulder
good
did it.
God, right?
Hallo, Jacques.
People
Wie
think
geht's dir
that's
heute?
cute, but that's painful.
Well, that and health and safety. I mean, she takes those things out of a bra, you're going to be tripping. I mean, she's going to play hack-a-sack. Just going
Mhm.
to.
I mean, like, hopefully she can fit down a hallway.
Adelaide Lass, there is English writing on both documents because it's international ID. So both of them work. I can rent a car in the US with my driver's license, but I can't get a beer because makes sense. Hey, Anya. Wish I could do meetups with you all. Well, you should be more than welcome whenever we figure out when we're going to do it. Next time, I'll probably try to see if I can sneak in like do a reverse Nick and start.
Everybody's got to get out the map all the time.
Well, it's because Americans don't know geography because, like, it's very important for like South Korea and the Middle East, and I think that it's very important with like a map that in South Africa as well. But getting in somewhere over here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, somewhere there, play golf with Brandon, get
How
yelled
do you
at by
say
Marissa.
Wyoming or Washington? Do you just say Vyoming? Wyoming?
Wyoming.
Washington?
Wyoming. Bessington.
Okay.
I'm just
I would
reading what it
not.
says.
Well, I would not be able to point you in a good direction, but don't trust me for directions also.
No, but I'm thinking if I did, do you have a big airport in New Jersey? Or is it north of New York? Well, I don't know. Maybe I can land in Philly and Brandon can come in there. We can play golf. I don't know where well, Tom lives there too. So we can play golf up there. Then Ohio up to Michigan. Force Jamie to at least acknowledge me by shooting at me from her windows.
Yeah. I'll wave at you. Hey, thanks for stopping by. I'll get out.
And then it's just a quick trip to Indiana and Kentucky down to Tennessee's.
You are doing a great job. Baker
Yeah.
narrates America. Just like I'm in Wyoming. And
Wyoming.
people would be like,
Who told me?
Wyoming.
and then Ohio.
Ohio. Yeah. Oh my.
Ooh.
I would like that. Expert can't pick the date. Well, you picked the date the last time because I went on a stream roughly a year ago and they said, Brandon says you're coming to America. And I said, I am. And apparently I was. And then someone, I have to get my nails done and it can only be that weekend because I have this wonderful, it's because I need it's not vajazzle, it's a pejazzle. I don't know why he wants that, but the pictures, she does a good job. I'll just say that. Yeah, no more motions, no more stalling. We get right to the trial straight away. We're 8 minutes
That's
late.
what we think. What do you bet there's I would like a written out motion for a particular subject matter jurisdiction by way that's an admiralty flag. Like I think Owens has had a weekend to think about it and drink about it. And he's like, I'm out. I'm going to quit this. I'll bring all my people, but we're phoning it in, guys. This is terrible.
Why couldn't I get a beer? Because they wouldn't recognize my driver's license as an ID, so they didn't believe I was old. I had just used it in a restaurant, which to me it's weird. With that, I know it's so they don't get sued. Stop having so many lawyers, America. It's the land of the free. No, absolutely not. You have more rules than communist Denmark. But I used my driver's license to get a beer because I don't wear my passport around. Imagine if I got drunk and dropped my passport. That'll be kind of a problem. I have to go out through Mexico. And that boat ride is quite long from my ancestors could do it, so I can do it too. But I have my veterans ID where they can prove my name is my name. There's a photo on it. Everything is okay, but no BS for me. Valhalla turned into Karen. I loved it.
I just see Baker, in the Yucatan Peninsula, just cutting down trees from the Amazon, like, F it, I'm going back Viking style. Just grows a longer beard, all those things.
And no, I haven't seen Aussie Insider post something because I've been in bed. I am not feeling well. Hey, Disney Nerd 85. That's a cool name. Yeah, I love those. My mom used to work at the hospital. Every time I went out to visit her, the ICU nurses always were so nice to me. They came up and kissed me and said, "Go home and give that to your dad." And when you're 5 years old, you think that's weird. And when you're 27 years old, you think, was my dad a player?
Oh my word.
Hey, Gerda and Becca. You're 2 hours from Philly. Well, then we can do a meetup and have a mediocre Philly cheesesteak like I had in the airport. Everyone was talking so much about it. It was just soft bread with a little bit of fried meat in it. It wasn't the worst thing I ate in America, but what's the name? Saxby was way better. Man up and join us for a golf meetup in Florida. Well, I'm not coming to Florida. I get sick just being in Denmark, so why would I go to Florida? Oh. I need an air condition for this. Like this.
So I don't know. This is not a Timu thing, but I have a fan here that plugs to a USB. It's really nice. I would encourage it. You also kind of, your hair looks like it's blowing. You look like it gave a darn sometimes, or a superhero, or you're just stuck in a wind tunnel, but you don't get too hot.
Hmm.
Is it one of those? Don't think about it with the beer. Then I don't get it. No, the beer is. I have to prove I'm 21 years old to buy a beer, or they can get in trouble at that establishment. And they didn't recognize Danish driver's license as an international ID, which it is. And Valhalla turned into a full, because I said, that's fine, I just don't drink then. And Valhalla, the best thing was seeing this. I think she must have been a Hispanic, the waiter. And Valhalla said, so you don't like foreigners? And you could just see, and her entire life of using that, well, it's your white privilege. It's just because I'm Hispanic. All of those arguments, she just ran into that wall, and she was just, but my boyfriend is a foreigner. Yeah, I have a friend who's black. Can I use the N-word? No. It's
Yeah,
you.
no.
That was so much trouble with her. In her world, she couldn't figure out. Well, I don't like a foreigner, but I've used that excuse all my life. We should have a hide and seek meetup. Well, I have my suitcase ready
Oh my
to go right over
gosh,
here.
yes. It'll just be us sending Zoom calls from various pieces of furniture. It'll be awesome. I'll be in a cabinet.
Airport food isn't representative of American food. I was recommended this place by a certain someone. Just saying that was a okay Philly cheesesteak. I bet you if I'd gotten it at a gas station, it would probably have been roughly the same. And the thing that soured me on it was no taxation without representation, and I paid 3% sugar tax on it. And I'm not going to use your American health system. I'm going to Boston with at least 2 bags of tea. I'm starting the second revolution.
I would follow, possibly.
Hey, Grumpy. Yeah, and it was the most expensive food I bought as well, because there was sugar taxes and server taxes, and then they asked for tips, and I was like, no, you got a server tax, you got your tips. It's if you want, I saw someone today, oh, in Denmark, Big Mac costs this much, but they make $4 more an hour than American. And I said, oh, you forgot to tell people that we also pay 42% income tax and 25% value added tax. You should do the opposite way around. In Denmark, a Big Mac costs this. How many hours must a McDonald's worker work to buy a Big Mac? Because I think we have to work a little bit longer than Americans, even though they get $22, not $25.
My only addition to this is if you cannot get a plain hamburger with mustard only on it, and you continue to ask me, do I want cheese on that? No, I would have ordered a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
And then you want to tell me you need $20 an hour. And I never get what I order correctly. And I don't go back in. I don't care. It's fast food. But it's costing $40 now. I would rather just buy something that I know I will do it right.
Brandon, you don't need to give me a refund. It was the best meal I had in Philadelphia. The other one was something. I bought a coffee that Marissa recommended. Can't remember the company. And then I thought, well, I still have 6 hours to kill before my plane goes, and I can't sit somewhere and sleep. So I'm gonna go walking and buy me some sandwich thingy. That was worse than buying sushi at a gas station, I think. It was really bad. Really, really bad. Tony Luke's is better than Gino's. Are we being serious? I don't. Tony Luke's were the only one that was at the airport. La Combe, La Colombe, sorry, which means the Colombian. But they had some, I think it was kind of like a little snack sandwich or something. I was just, made me feel kind of like I do today. The McDonald's here charge for mayo and tartar sauce. If you want dippings for anything,
It's extra.
yeah, I pay roughly $1 for a top of dip for my fries at the McDonald's. Drop Dead Fed. We are not all well. I am slightly under the weather, so we'll see how long I last. Hopefully till trial starts. You can go out and sit to a sit-down good meal for what you pay for McDonald's now. It's also expensive. We have like a traditional Danish, we call them grill bars. It's just,
Oh,
they have a deep fryer and a hot plate, and boom, that's it. Some places you can sit, some places you can't. Mostly sausages, French fries, and stuff like that. If I get their menu, a house menu as they call it, it's a double burger with bacon and cheese and a big stack of fries. It's still, I think it's 30 Danish less than buying a big meal at McDonald's, and there's way more food. But
yeah,
I
I
don't
love
want
the
to do
mom
that.
and pop places.
I missed the dollar menu. Now it's a $3 menu. Well, that's inflation. Everything gets more expensive. Oh, can we start court?
Thank you so much. No, they're on California time or Owen's time, so he's probably at the Kinko's seeing if the 27 motions he filed have something or other.
We call
He's gotta
them.
make all his billboards, his Sarah Boone billboards.
Yeah. I will say, so I did kind of look around the internet to see how everyone else was kind of looking at this. And from what I gathered, the 911 call is going to be really difficult for the defense to explain away her demeanor, her delivery of like, my boyfriend's dead. Now, they can use that excuse of grief, kind of shows differently on different people. But she doesn't get upset until you hear Brian going away, and she's like, "No, don't leave me." And then she kind of like does the CPR, like, do, he made a noise, do. I mean, that's going to be an incredibly high hurdle for them to try to explain. Volpa Fox, I should have an update for Delphi today. There was Saturday court and other things. I'm trying to stick with most of Sunday morning being a decompress, not on the internet day. So I am working on some Sunday content, but trying to keep that balance where it's hard looking at the news all the time. I love it, but some of the stories can be really quite heartbreaking, and just taking a little bit of time to kind of decompress. Yeah, no.
I think with a lot of this stuff, it's gonna be hard to explain away. Not just that, but like on top of the fact that she's claiming that this is self-defense, and you keep going on with your same story of it's hide and seek, and he died, and I don't know what happened, and it's gonna be a big hurdle for them.
Yeah, and that's the big problem. I was watching another channel cover the opening statements yesterday, and the chat was constantly going on about, well, it was an accident. And I think that must be because they don't understand what it takes to be self-defense, because self-defense have to be a choice. You can't accidentally self-defend yourself.
No.
Because an accident will bring it down to maybe manslaughter or something like that. But you can't come back later and say, whoa, now I killed him. That was actually pretty lucky. So let's call it self-defense, right?
Yeah.
What I can tell you about the Delphi thing is that Andrea Burkhart has filed a motion to be able to see the publicly displayed exhibits. Judge Gold wrote in her order that it would only be the media, but Andrea Burkhart is a lawyer and said that she is, representing the public, and it is a vital thing to be able to disseminate this because another practicing attorney, I believe the co-host of Defense Diaries, was admonished by Judge Gold for trying to go up to see the exhibits. So it's a really tough case. I will be doing updates as I can. It was just the way things are going there, it's insane. I've never seen anything close to a Stalinist trial in America, but this is about as bad as it's ever been. It's embarrassing for someone who lives in Indiana. Not to mention, Judge Gold was one of the premier instigators of having streaming and video in courtroom to disseminate information to the public. But she's gone back on that with this case.
Yeah, that's weird. But you can't show the pictures, and there's so much in that case that I'm gonna put this card on screen. I'll be right back.
Okie dokie.
Mhm.
So if you guys have questions, I can try. I've been following the case. I live about an hour and a half south of Delphi. Went on a walk through Delphi with Nicholas Starro Trial Watch. That's a great video to watch. You can really see the closeness of the town. I mean, for two mobily challenged people like Nick and I, we were able to walk from the CVS. You can see the jail where Unified Command was in charge. And then you go to the courthouse, and then we went along the trail. I will say, I encourage you, if you do have a chance to walk along the trail, take some quiet time, say goodbye to Libby and Abby. It is a very eerie place to me. To me, I was surprised at how emotional I got there. And even Nicholas and I just had a kind of a moment of silence. Best Philly cheesesteak in Delphi. I don't know. I didn't stay. I yelled at a cop, which probably wasn't great, but he was spitting out nonsense. And Nicholas is able to do that thing where he's just like, "Hi, I'm Nicholas," and he just talks to everything. And I was like, "I'm gonna catch a case." Because the cop was meandering on about, well, he confessed 60 times, and I shouted out because I'm me. Yeah, while he was eating his own feces. I mean, and then I was like, Mo, you are going to get yourself arrested in frickin' Delphi, where you have made fun of every single police officer. Get your behind back in the car and go.
Yeah, I definitely
I will
haven't followed
say,
it like you, but it sounds insane.
I will say the police officer was actually pretty kind. He was talking to a bunch of old women who were questioning him about everything in the case. I'm sure he gets asked a lot and that kind of thing. So he was genuinely cordial and didn't hold it against me that I just kind of popped off. What I will say is, if you do go to Delphi, this is a town of 100 or 1,200 people. These are two children that probably everyone, if they didn't know them by name, they knew them by sight. You know, it's a small town where if you do the little steering wheel wave to everyone you see, it, it, so do be respectful if you go to Delphi. Not everyone is in a place to talk about it. It's really, really a loss of innocence, a loss of the community sense, a loss of, two beautiful children. So keep that in mind. I don't doubt that everyone that's there is trying to be sensitive, but if you do go, some people don't really want to talk about it. Some people don't, want to deal with it. It's an incredibly, painful subject. And thank you, Super Ally. I will say that Defense Diaries, Andrea Burkhart, not the lawyer, it's the other one. There are a bunch of people following this. They're there. They're sitting in line. So, you know, keep in touch with them. I will try to keep upping their stuff because it is a very, very kind of detailed case. You're getting a lot of, because people hear different things, because the courtroom is know your lawyer. Yes. Maybe. I don't. It is
Lawyer, you know,
lawyerly.
he was wrongly named Know Your Lawyer in a court
Oh,
filing.
Yeah.
oh, okay. Well, sorry, guys. I am terrible with names. I am just dead awful. That's why everyone gets a nickname like Brows of Justice or Thunder Cow for, Sarah. I said cow. I am trying to keep the Jesus within me.
There was also a New York judge a while ago saying the Second Amendment doesn't exist in this courtroom in a self-defense case. They should be forcefully removed from the bench because that's one of the things, even though it's less, what do you call it? It's hold more than a sieve. The Bill of Rights, the US 47 amendments, they try to poke holes in it every single day, but you have a Second Amendment. And if you have a Second Amendment, he says, I don't care. He should be removed from the bench because his job is to uphold the law, not make the law. The politicians make the law. The judges rule by the law. And that's actually one of the things we talk about in when you become a layman in Denmark is it doesn't matter, like The Rock would say, it doesn't matter what you think. It's all about what the law says. Because I could sit here and say, well, just having 30 ounces of Colombian marching powder, that's just a good weekend. That shouldn't be illegal. But the law is it's illegal. So I have to rule as if it's illegal. It's not you have to follow the law because you are the arbiter of the law that the government gives you or the politician gives you.
Yes. You are not. That's why we have separations of all of these things. And I wish they would bring civics class back into rotation because I think so many people are confused about how our government works, what's going on, what are the rules, what are the things. Please tell me she's getting a blowout right now.
I hope.
She's
I
like,
don't know.
she's getting hair extensions. She's going to come in some ratchet wig. Please. I need it. I need this in my life. I cannot tell you how much.
I'm just hoping that they're coming in saying, hey, by the way, that plea deal, can we get that now? We've been
Yeah, we
talking over
really
the
like
weekend.
that plea deal. Sarah can't remember that chart of like how not to be abusive. Geez, OP, you think she could, be subtle? She's so smart. She's so calculating and so clever. But she picks up the daggone laminated chart like, okay, I'm supposed to be submissive and scared and something. What's that other thing? Oh, demure.
Did you just say Jizo Pete's?
It's possible. I'm trying not to curse. Doing all this personal self-growth thing.
I love when I hear other people say it. I feel like I'm the only one in this world nowadays.
She does excel at everything she does. I wonder how the problem for the defense is going to be that demure and totally, I was cooperating completely. Oh, poor Baker.
I feel like I've been run. It feels like I've been drinking the entire weekend and I had none of the fun, so it shouldn't feel like that.
Yeah. Also, did we catch how Owen said that she was a sheltered daughter? Is that can we charge her mother? I mean, who raises someone like this?
Tom, don't get Sarah into trouble. She's a good girl. She's a straight A student.
She really is. I mean, she is fighting hard for her justice.
I rewatched that body cam. The only three things she worries about. Will she have to talk to his family? What about her Dr. Pepper? And did you let the dogs out? Woof, 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 woof. Well,
Okay.
no, I'm not, but I am running off stream doing it quite a lot because I've got some kind of bug. Well, I have Marissa on standby. Mo will be running the show this afternoon, so but she has to go to the pickup line. So if Marissa can be here between
2 and 3, if
between 2
possible.
and 3, if that could be possible, so she can run it because she has the fancy access to my StreamYard. And I'm not going to say what I said on the pre-show. She has the access to my back door.
Mo is not single. I'm married and have 6 kids. But I am looking at a brother husband. Mr. Mo is not sold on it, but I think he would like, not taking out the trash every week. I'm trying to be helpful here. He's like, I'm stressed out. I need help with chores. And I'm like, I will get you a brother husband.
How many
Oddly enough,
screenshots? How many screenshots do you have of her squatting over a bush? The answer is always not enough. Word on Twitter is not all jurors have arrived yet. No, Owen said this last week. They were making roads outside the house.
Now, the jury can't even be in time. Come on, guys.
Yes, I heard about the Daniel Penny case, which to me seems like a horrible case, especially if you are in New York. You can't show it because New York doesn't share video feeds from their courtroom. But sadly, even though I think he have a pretty good self-defense, or I was restraining him because he was going absolutely cray-cray in the subway, it's New York. And 2 states I would not like to be in a courtroom in is New York and Califas. Well, in California, I would just be shoplifting $750 worth of stuff. I'll be free again. Doesn't matter. I shouldn't say this online, so I can't get into the US the next time. Mac will send her husband, but he doesn't do it either. Who ate that poop? I didn't eat my plop.
That was Richard Allen. It is reported by his defense that he was in such a state of psychosis when he gave these confessions that he was eating his own excrement. I'm sure medical, evidence will come out, but everything in the Delphi case has been very tight-lipped. So it's hard to know what's conjecture, what, is getting leaked from places, what the real story is until it comes out in court. But that is a story that has come out.
Yeah, of course, Massachusetts. Well, unless I'm crusty panties and have a sweetheart deal with the MSP, so I can just be just as neglectful to my kids and don't care about any of my restraining orders because the police won't do anything. They'll forget to file papers whenever I have to go to court. I could be the new Plevin. I could sit here and say, but everyone, did you know that the telemetrics that they're trying to do now is clearly going to show that Karen Reed did it? He was bent over tying his shoes with a glass on top of his head, and that's where they got all the injuries from. But Plevin, you absolute Mongol, none of the injuries shows that. Well, conspiracy theorists on the other side will say it doesn't matter, but the Toyota telemetrics will show that it was a glass, 4 ounces of liquid glass standing on his head, and that's how everything got embedded in the rear bumper. But Plevin,
I did see a tweet about how incredibly strong the elbow is. So the elbow could have broken that. Just
without
Lord,
cracking
people.
anything in the elbow. It's okay to be an idiot.
Yeah, I guess. It's like that South Park episode about the truth about, 9/11, and they're like, "Well, most people believe the truth, but 1/4 of the people are not smart." They used another
My
word,
buddy
but I'm
is
trying to.
always saying, think of the average intelligent person you know. Half is stupider than them. Because that's the average. That's how you get to the average. It's 50-50. So for every Einstein, there's some mouth breathing idiot saying, well, the other side is just conspiracy theorists. I'm sitting here in my mom and dad's attic, and I will now strip for your enjoyment because the super chats isn't really coming in. So I love that he accidentally took both of his shirts off on one stream. And yes, gyno like me.
Okay, let's say I have to readjust health and safety over here. I'm going to turn off my camera,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know. But no, why not just show your moves to the world? Body positivity for everyone.
Hey,
Hmm.
if they can do it on Twitch while sitting in a bathtub, why shouldn't I be able to make super chats?
I have thought about, heavily selling bath water. It's a retirement plan.
Oh, oh boy.
What are we going to do in Charleston? Who's going to Charleston? Where's Charleston? And is it fun? Oh, it's something.
Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, that's there. Oh, it's the booty state. Peaches, I know what that means. You're a naughty state. Seems like I would like it in a booty state. Well, not as much. I'm a 90s kid, so they're more the chesticle area. Did Mo name her boobs health and safety?
Yes, it's either that or rack of justice, depending on, their impediment with my life, because they like to turn my mic off if I, go over. So then their health and safety, making sure I don't say bad stuff.
I saw the news here about the giant great white shark that washed up in Cape Cod had to be towed for research. I hope it died naturally. So did I. But have you checked if any of the local sheriffs have been out on a boat lately with a weird guy who used to be on the USS Indianapolis and a guy from a university? I'm just saying, in that area, those three types of people getting together spells trouble for sharks. Those doll
It does.
eyes.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
Gator speaker. No, I am a gamecock. Go cocks. Enough bad mouthing people living in their parents' attics and basement. It makes it hard to be taken seriously, even when not crazy. Well, I'm living in my dad's old house, so that's the same thing. And I am crazy.
I am streaming from my master bedroom because my official office is supposed to be being built.
It's hot as crap. Everything is old. We either doing Bedminster or Tourist Place to start. Well, we're not getting Mr. Buskill Valhalla to Charleston then, because, we can't go in there. Waffle House? No. That's not fun. The mouse here? No, please don't go in there.
Hollis said no to Waffle House. Do we need to revoke his hillbilly pass? Because I feel like that's against one of the commandments. I mean, the other is to have a bunch of country crock containers as cheap cheap Tupperware. So you open like 18 at grandma's house until you find the butter.
Well, that's just Jamie's Tupperware.
It's free Tupperware. You get it, you clean it out, you can use it. No buying
Yeah.
Tupperwares.
Hmm.
And
That's
if you
why
do
they're
buy
going out
good
of
Tupperware,
business.
you better get it back. Midwest tip. If that's the good Tupperware, you send that back, okay?
The best stuff is the lunch meat Tupperware. I love that stuff. It's good stuff.
And holy, apparently a juror hasn't arrived. That's why everything is going bad. Thank you, Peter.
The judge is going to sequester these jurors. Like, okay, well, now you can't go home.
Yeah.
Browse the
Yeah.
justice
Like your
will not
freedom.
tolerate time
Can't show up on
wasting. The jurors are like, can we convict her now? Like, do we have to continue with this? We have an idea. Can we
Yeah.
convict now?
They would still have been waiting after we got in there and saw a fight. That's I wanted to immerse myself in American culture. I didn't see any backyard boxing. I didn't see Waffle House boxing. I didn't go to a ladies' club, gentlemen's club. I didn't go to either Hooters or Twin Peaks. I'm just saying, ain't much America in that. Valhalla is a bad representative of your country. No, he's not. He's an amazing person. Can she reconsider the plea deal? Yes, she can. She won't, and it's not sure that the state will go with it. Sometimes they do, and then they have to go to the judge and ask him if he'll allow it. So they can send feelers to the other side and say, "Hey, this isn't looking too great. What do you say? Can we still get back to that 15 years?" They'll probably say, "Nah, 17." And it can
I
happen.
wouldn't blame them. I mean, I think the state has been playing it. So I saw some analyses of, and I think we all had questions as to why they didn't grill Brian harder on what she did to him, kind of that past. But since he is subject to recall on both sides, I think they're going to get into it once Sarah opens her mouth. And the state has warned them. It's kind of like when you're a mom, like, go ahead and test me. That is not a test. That is a warning. So the state has said, you don't bring it in, we're not going to bring it in, because they're not opening that door. But that door will be opened by the defense, and they will get into it. Not to mention, if they go into Sarah's past, she was trying to get George to drop a third-degree, I think, DV against her for the alleged choking incident. So, the facts are terrible for this case, for the defense. There is no defending this. You should have taken the plea deal. I don't know what they're going to do, what they're going to cobble up, but that Sarah, innocent, small little girl voice is going to disappear as soon as the state asks any questions, and it is going to be apparent.
Yeah. And she can't keep it together. And no, I didn't play Grab Ass. We played Proctologist. That's a game Valhalla invented.
Judge, can the parties approach the bench?
As soon as Madam Clerk calls it, we can do that.
Case number 2020-2603, the state of Florida versus Sarah Boone. Parties are now connected for the record, beginning with the state.
Dave Ketchler on behalf of the state. William Jacob, the state.
Defense.
James Owens for Sarah Boone.
Tell me how you sing for Sarah Boone. Kevin Beck on behalf of
Ms. Boone, ready right now to be sworn. Please do swear or affirm the testimony you should give. Shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
Good morning, ma'am. Can you state your full name and date of birth for the record for me?
Sarah Boone, 10-10-77.
Ms. Boone is seated at counsel's table wearing a black jacket and a white multicolored shirt. Looks like some splotches.
Jules is reporting Sarah will take the stand tomorrow in her defense. But so they're going to go through 40 witnesses for the state today? That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, it helps with my feeling of I just want to curl up in a corner and die seeing this beautiful lady. Hey there.
Watching on it. She is in custody. However, she's not wearing any restraints. So we will be standing when our jury panel enters and exits.
She is, even though I'm 27, she is 9 months younger than I. And I feel I'm doing better.
The parties may approach.
That's her birthday. October 10th, 77. I think diverse shirt is the correct nomenclature in this progressive day and age. Oh, my. So is the state going to rest today? The state is making up for all these wasted years. The state didn't waste any years. Remember that. It's Sarah Boone who wasted all of this time. Because this trial has been delayed 16 times. And she tried to get it delayed the 17th as well. We can't do corner of a suitcase. Well, if I go in a suitcase, I'm in every corner of the suitcase.
All right, State, anything we need to address before we bring in our panel this morning?
Not from the state.
Defense.
No, sir.
All right. Ms. Boone, just a couple of questions before we bring in our panel this morning. Are you still satisfied with your lawyer's representation of you in this matter?
Very much so.
And are you still on board with the strategy that they are utilizing in your defense?
Yes.
All right, very good. Let's go ahead and stand and bring in our panel.
So Nina Canadian, he's asking that so she can't appeal with lack of competent counsel.
Yeah. Well, get on record every day. She's.
Oh,
State, do you recognize our jury?
Pop-Tart
Yes, Your Honor.
assistant
You
must have
recognize our
been
jury?
told to
Yes.
stop
All right,
wearing
everyone can be
shorty
seated.
skirts because she's wearing pantaloons today.
Members of the jury, good morning. Welcome back to 12 Alpha of the Orange County Courthouse. I hope that you all had a restful weekend and enjoyed your time with your loved ones, your friends, and your family. Just if you could, I gave you a long instruction on Friday before we broke. If you could please confirm that you complied with the court's instructions by raising your hand at this time. Record reflect that all members of our panel have raised their hands. Now, members of the jury, I know the line to get in this morning was quite long. So the lawyers have reminded me that on the right side of the entrance of the courthouse is a jury-only line. So if you can make your way all the way to the far right side of the entrance, there's a jury-only line. Yes, sir. Juror number 2 in the back. It was still quite long? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to bring that to your attention if you did not know. Obviously, if you're stuck, we're waiting on you. So don't feel anxiety or anything if you're stuck in that line. We can't start till you all get here. And I appreciate, again, your sacrifice and your attentiveness in this process. With that, State, you can call your next witness.
State, we call Dr. Sarah Sadovich.
Ooh.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, thank you.
Good morning, doctor. Could you please state and spell your name for the record for us?
Sarah Sadovich, SARAZYDOWICZ.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Can you tell us, what do you do for a living?
I'm a forensic pathologist.
And who do you work for?
I work for Orange County. We cover Orange County and Osceola County.
And how long have you been a forensic pathologist?
I've been at this office for about 12 years and then 1 year in Tampa, so about 13 years.
And what type of educational background do you have to be a forensic pathologist?
So I have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I went to medical school in Kansas City, Missouri. After that, I went to Cleveland, Ohio to do a 1 year rotating clinical internship. After that, I went back to the University of Wisconsin. I did my residency in anatomic pathology and clinical pathology. I have 2 fellowships or subspecialty training. One is in cytopathology from Northwestern University in Chicago. And then I did my forensic pathology fellowship in Tampa.
Is continuing education something that you must maintain in order to hold this position?
Yes, I have to do continuing education for my board certifications, which is in anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, and forensic pathology. And I also have to do separate continuing medical education to maintain my medical license for the state of Florida.
So tell us, what are your duties as a medical examiner?
Ladies, say no to Botox.
In what's called the
I was saying, ladies, say no to Botox. This woman is reminding me of Nancy Pelosi, and I'm trying to pay attention to her, but her brow line is here, and her brows are up in her foreheadular area, and it's just creeping me out. Fashion
Emmy,
by Mo.
but Emmy, that's fast.
I think that they're looking at the jury. I think that they're looking at the jury. The jury is already disgusted, and I think they have a pretty good read and realize they're going to pare down. And
Yeah.
I think it's also a strategy because the defense is so woefully unprepared all the time. They might have said, okay, let's speed this up and see what they come with, because they're going to be waiting on examples and, all the things from Kinko's. So I'm pretty sure that this is probably them saying, let's speed this up. Let's not give them a chance to prepare.
Yeah, and they was talking about they were going to file motions doing the court proceedings and everything. So yeah, get in, get out, be gone. And good morning, trucker MG. He's become a trucker. He was driving across America Saturday night. Botox is for middle-aged complaints too, though.
Just not to the point where you look permanently surprised or no more wire hangers. It looks a bit
at the strongman thing this weekend. We had I don't know if she's still the chairman of the Strongman Federation. Her face is constantly not a muscle can be moved in her face. She looks. She has that constant look of slight surprised and slight. Who farted?
medical legal investigation of deaths. And that just means that we investigate certain types of deaths. And there's a Florida statute or a Florida law that states which types of deaths that we'll be involved in investigating. And in general, they're deaths that are not natural. So accidents, suicides, homicides, or deaths that are natural but maybe unexpected. Those are the types of cases that we're involved in. And again, that Florida statute lays out exactly which types of cases that we'll be involved in. And the reason we're involved in that is our goal is to determine cause of death and manner of death in those individuals that we're investigating.
Could you tell us what an autopsy is, generally speaking?
So an autopsy is also called a postmortem or after-death examination. And there are kind of two main parts to it. The first part is what's called an external examination, which is just as it sounds. So that's making observations about an individual. So hair color, eye color, height, any sort of unique markings like scars or tattoos. And at that time, we're also looking for any external signs of diseases or injuries. After that, we go to what's called the internal examination. So that means that we open the body cavities, we remove all of the organs and dissect all of the organs. And again, as we're doing that, we're looking for any signs of diseases or injuries that might help explain why that person died. And we can also add ancillary tests or other tests, so things like toxicology, microbiology. It's a little bit dependent on each case, but we have options for other testing as well.
Can you tell us what is the cause and manner of death, and is this something that you document?
So cause of death is either a disease or an injury that ultimately results in an individual's death. So it's very individual and unique to that individual. Manner of death is a way to categorize or group similar types of deaths together. And for manner of death, there's only 5 choices. So there would be natural, accident, suicide, homicide, or undetermined. So those are the manners of death.
In your career, approximately how many autopsies have you performed?
Around 3,000.
And have you previously testified as an expert?
Hey, they tried that in, was it in Minnesota? Or where was it? They tried to remove parts when a guy was being operated on.
Yeah. They were like, he's waking up, and the organ recovery company was like, that's fine, just knock him out again. A lot of people actually quit because apparently this is something that goes on, and it's very, very scary. They're having a Senate committee hearing, which means medical kabuki theater, or political medical kabuki theater, but at least people are starting to learn about that.
It's just, imagine waking up and it must be the worst. I couldn't imagine being awake during an operation.
I was always so afraid of that. I'm always so afraid, like, they're really going to knock me out. And then, you know, when I do get knocked out, apparently the filter I don't have, apparently I have an even greater stage of that, because one of the guys was trying to talk to me and I'm like, dude, you sound like the guy from the monorail song on The Simpsons. So I just kept saying monorail, monorail, monorail. And I was like, I'm real sorry, but monorail.
Oh my God.
Oh
Jesus.
Lord.
The last time I went into, I had to have my nose re-broken and filed down because of scar tissue. And she gave me the fall asleep before the operation drug. And she said, can you just keep talking to me so I can hear? I said, I don't know what you're giving me, but can you save some of it and we'll go partying this Saturday? And she just laughed. And that's the next thing the next thing I remember is me waking up with my entire face just looking like I've been in 2 rounds with Tyson.
Oh no.
Because both my eyes were just effed up. And she came in and said, sorry, I don't want to date someone looking like that. I said, I understand you. It was just a joke. That's she said, yeah, it's not the first time people have really liked what I do to them. Giggity, giggity, giggity.
Witness in court?
Yes.
How many times?
Between 75 to 80.
And in what areas have you testified as an expert witness?
Forensic pathology.
Turning our attention to this case, did you perform the autopsy?
Yes.
And what were your findings as to cause and manner of death?
So the cause of death, which I put on the death certificate, is positional asphyxia with environmental suffocation. And the manner of death I classified as homicide.
Now, when you perform your autopsy, what information do you have at the time that you begin that examination?
It's incredibly variable. I can have a lot of background information. Sometimes I have none. It just depends on the particular case.
In this case, what information were you provided at the time?
So the information I had was that the decedent was with his girlfriend, and at some point in time in the night, he got into a suitcase, which was then zippered shut. At another point at time, I believe she went to bed, and then the next morning discovered that he was still in the suitcase. And I think that was in about an 11-hour time frame from the information that I had.
You mentioned asphyxia. Can you explain for us what asphyxia is?
Sure. So asphyxia is a very general term. It would be kind of like saying, I drive a car, right? That's very generic. And we know that there are many different types of cars out there, right? So asphyxia simply means lack of oxygen or inadequate oxygen for an individual. And there are different categories of asphyxia. So you can have suffocation, which just means that there's obstruction of the airways. So that could be smothering, that could be somebody choking on a piece of food, or maybe just being in an environment where there's not enough oxygen in the air to sustain that individual. There's a category called strangulation. That would be compression of the neck, either blood vessels or airways. There's another category called mechanical asphyxia. That can be when the body is in an unusual or abnormal position where the actual mechanics of breathing can't occur. So that can be the position of the body, or it can be like, let's say if a heavy object fell on somebody and you simply can't breathe because of the weight of.
Yeah, they had to do that so they can see if something up when they touch your brain. So they have to have you alive or awake when they touch your brain. Probably not that funny.
That object. That would be a mechanical asphyxia. And then there's drowning. That's a different type of asphyxia. And there are a couple of other categories as well that are much less common.
Is there a most common type of asphyxia?
The most common would be ligature compression of the neck. So that would be like an event, a hanging. That would be the most common that we would see.
You also mentioned environmental suffocation. Could you tell us a little bit more what that means in more layman's terms?
So that just means there's not enough oxygen in the environment that the person is in. You could think of somebody who's in an enclosed space where there's a fixed amount of oxygen. So as that oxygen is, as that person is breathing, they're using up all the oxygen. And once it's gone, there's no oxygen left. Or you could think of maybe people who are, climbing Mount Everest. There's not as much oxygen up there, and that's why they have oxygen tanks. So it just means that the amount of oxygen available in the air around that person is not enough to sustain them.
In this case, what can you tell us about how long George Torres was in that suitcase?
There's not a really good way for me to give you a time frame as to how long he was in that suitcase. Again, because there was both the component of positional asphyxia, being in an unusual position for a period of time, and then also the environmental suffocation component. Because within that suitcase, certainly there's going to be oxygen, but it's not going to be the same as if you were sitting in a room like this. And because there are those multiple components happening at the same time, there's not a really good way to estimate or say with scientific certainty, oh, he was in for X amount of time. There's really not a good way to do that.
How about, is there any good way to approximate or determine the time that George Torres died?
There's not a good way to do that either, again, because there are so many different components at play at the time of his death. Sitting in a normal room like this, the percentage of oxygen that's available is about 20 to 21%. If that were to drop to 10 to 15%, the person can be impaired with judgment, they can be impaired with activity. Once that percentage drops between 8 to 10%, most people will lose consciousness. And at a percentage of 8% oxygen or less, that's when we would expect the death to occur.
I want her to talk about how he's not able to exchange the oxygen in his system because he's compressed. I think that will make them even more, as someone said, it'll make it very claustrophobic for people figuring out that it's not that there was not enough oxygen per se, it was that he couldn't.
You can't get a deep breath. So imagine you're just using your upper lungs. The C2 and all of that waste product is building up in your body because you're not able to expel it. I wish she had a more personable tone. I do feel like she's very clinical, and that's good. But some doctors do a really good job, and I think it's just the doctor of kind of explaining it in, a very sort of descriptive way, not being, bias or anything, but they can really explain it a lot better. And I wish that they had that.
Yeah. Yeah. The positional asphyxiation, she has to because I think that will really click with the jury when they look at the suitcase and think, if I was in there, imagine how scared I would be. It's kind of like waking up dreaming you've been buried alive. Well, not waking up dreaming. Waking up after a dream you've been buried alive because you're so afraid that the air would run out.
And so again, there's not a really good way to measure the amount of oxygen that would have been available to him in that suitcase, in addition to the fact that he was in an unusual position.
What position were you able to determine he was in that suitcase?
I wasn't able to see what position he was in. By the time that our medical legal death investigators were at the scene, he was already removed from the suitcase. Based on some of the findings, I favor that he was most likely in like a fetal type position. So knees flexed, arms flexed, and the head most likely flexed forward. But again, that's from my findings. I didn't see what position he was in.
What side of his body would
Sometimes.
he be resting on in this fetal position?
That's that most likely his left side. However, I do say the caveat that some of the findings are dependent on time, meaning that, you know, if that suitcase had been moved or flipped over, that could be different than what I'm seeing at the time of my examination.
Tell us, what is skin slippage?
So after death, the body goes through a series of progressive changes. And one of those changes is skin slippage. And what that does is it tells me that that person is a little bit further away from the actual time of death. So it's not something that's going to occur immediately after death for most people. It's something that would occur a little bit later on in that process of changes that happens after death.
And tell us, what is rigor mortis?
So rigor mortis is also called the postmortem stiffening of muscles. And again, that's one of the changes that occurs after death. Most of the times that will occur before we see skin slippage. But these changes are very variable from individual to individual. And it also depends a lot on the environment the person is in. So for example, those changes that we're going to see happen more quickly in a warm environment.
Yeah, skin slippage is when the skin starts to detach from the underlying tissue because you're starting to rot. Becca, talking about not rotting. 2 months of great chat, and Mo, glad you are here. Thank you for being here,
Thank
Becca.
you so much.
You are a ray of sunshine, which can be good, but also with people with mine and Mo's complexion.
Hey, I can look at the sun through the window and not get burned. Going outside is a completely different story.
Yeah.
Somebody who maybe is
No, we
engaged in
like
a physical or violent struggle, those changes are going to occur more rapidly. And then it also depends on the person themselves, you know, their relative size, their relative health. Those things can all impact the changes that we see after death.
How does skin slippage and rigor mortis inform your findings about how long George Torres was likely in that suitcase?
So again, you know, the time frame that I had was about 11 hours, just from the last time that he was known to be in the suitcase versus the time that he was found. So I'm basing it off of that. So about an 11-hour time period. Well, when I did my examination, the rigor mortis was already dissipating or leaving. Also, there was some skin slippage. And so if he had not been in the suitcase, if he had been out of the suitcase, I would not expect that advanced amount of change. It's compatible with him being in that suitcase for a longer period of time. It would have been warmer. And also if he had been, you know, struggling to get himself out, you know, engaging that physical activity, those are things that are going to accelerate or speed up that process. So my findings at the time of the examination are compatible with that 11-hour time period, or, you know, somewhere around there.
Additionally, did you note any injuries to the body of George Torres?
Yes.
These injuries that you noted to the body of George Torres,
Yes, that's normally what rigor. If you have been physically active, so you have a lot of lactose built up in your muscles, which he would have been because he's struggling. Rigor will set in faster, I believe we learned from the Cara Rentala case. And depending on the heat in the environment you're in, degradation of the body will happen faster as well if you're in a hot environment. So his rigor would probably set in faster and then release faster again because of the environment he was in.
you document them on what's called a body chart?
Yes, the diagram on a body chart, and we also take pictures as I'm going through my examination.
You're probably not going to see these pictures.
Your Honor, may approach the witnesses who previously marked for identification and shown to the defense as states are.
You may.
Oh my!
Showing you what's been marked for identification as states are. Do you recognize this document?
Yes,
And can you tell us what is this document?
that's a copy of my body diagram.
Sorry.
Oh, it's a copy of my body diagram.
And does this fairly and accurately represent the diagram that you created in this case for George Torres?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as states are into evidence.
Only
What was pre-marked as states are will be received
been
into evidence without
away 3
objection.
times
States
in an
are.
hour, so
Your Honor, request
not
permission to publish.
holding up that well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, mine is all.
So, ma'am, on this body chart, can you describe for us and point out what was the first blunt impact injury that you identified?
So there were some blunt impact injuries to his head.
Can anyone read what's pointing to his peen? It looks like it says love.
I think I have a copy of it in Discord because Jedi Jess is awesome. Let me see if I can
No,
pull it up.
No,
because
she
I
says the
know I went
diagram
over
wasn't
it.
included in it.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I didn't, because I went over the autopsy report and I don't remember any crotchular region issues, but I wasn't
but it-
paying attention for them.
It could say love.
I don't think it's on this one, but there were some blunt impact injuries to his head right up here around the eye and on the mouth area.
And then, did you notate any injuries to his hand?
Yes, so there were some ecchymoses, or you can think of that as like a large kind of bruise on both hands.
What other blunt impact injuries did you identify?
So there was a series of ecchymoses on the left side of the back, which is right about here.
And any others?
There were some on the forearms as well.
And you use this body chart, you say, in addition to photographing the injuries that you document, correct?
Yes.
As part of your examination, and I believe it's on the body chart itself, do you document the height and weight of the person as well?
Yes.
And what was the height of Mr. Torres?
So, yeah, so technically for us, it's length. Height is the measurement that's taken while someone is standing. So his length was 62 inches and his weight was 103 pounds.
Marissa, everyone does that because when the orifice is let go, they everything opens.
Yeah.
That's
And I do, now I am wondering if they're going to send the super aggressive lawyer up. I think that the jury probably did not appreciate him going really, really hard on, we took a picture of the room, you know,
yeah.
and he's like, so you didn't test for DNA. You didn't do a fiber analysis. It was so weird.
In regards to these blunt impact injuries, how is it that you come to the conclusion that these injuries were the result of blunt impacts?
So these are typical wounding patterns for blunt force trauma. And when I say blunt force trauma, that can mean something striking a part of the body, or on the other hand, it can be the body striking an object. And that causes injury to the skin, to the soft tissue, and sometimes the deeper tissues, depending on how severe or how strong that blunt force trauma is.
Are these injuries consistent with a person being struck with a baseball bat?
They could be, yes.
Are they consistent with a person being pushed down a flight of stairs.
They could be, yes.
Can you say whether or not these injuries occurred while George Torres was in the suitcase?
No.
Why is it that you cannot say that?
So all of these injuries seem to have occurred around the same time, meaning that they're relatively acute or new. They're not things that are healing or something that happened last week. So they all occurred around the same time. But you can't really look at a bruise or a contusion and say, oh, that happened 2 hours ago. There's not a good way to do that.
Are these injuries consistent with them occurring while he was inside the suitcase?
Yes, they could be.
As part of your examination, do you also check the toxicology of George Torres?
Yes.
And is that something that's pretty standard in any autopsy?
Yes.
And what were the toxicology results for George Torres?
So there was a blood alcohol level of 0.139 milligrams per deciliter, and there was also caffeine and nicotine detected as well.
That level of alcohol, is that over the legal limit in the state of Florida to drive?
Sure. So for driving under the influence, that's a 0.08. So that is higher than that.
Did she say 1.3? That's not that much. That's partying.
I'm really bad with numbers, so I heard 3-1. So
yeah, but that's what I thought. But maybe my brain, because I am a little loopy, turned it around, because I heard it as 3-1 the first time. But if it was 1.3, that's nothing. But 3-1, well, for an alcoholic, that's partying. 139, yeah. 139 is nothing.
Thank you, chat, for being awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, 139 is Brandon at midday on a Monday.
So, but that negates the defenses. Once he gets to 0.3, once he gets to 0.2, he's, a terrifying monster. Now, I know you methylate it back, and it's, then you get
No, you don't,
true...
because when your body isn't doing its job, it doesn't break down the alcohol anymore.
Oh, that's right. Well, I know that there's math involved, and that being the case, I'm sure she has a very accurate, kind of idea of how drunkish he was based on math. I don't know. They did it in the Karen Reed thing. They methylated it. I don't know.
No, but in a living person, because the function goes on, the liver will break down the alcohol.
That makes a lot more sense. I wasn't even thinking that.
But if you are if you're not circulating anything in your system, it'll just stay in your liver. So and 139, I bet you the most of us, if we're not driving home and we are having a few cocktails, 139 that's like, I think the legal limit is 2 beers in Denmark. They are 4.6% beers. Back in the day when it was still 0.8. Now it's 0.5. So you can have 1 beer before you can drive. So 5 beers and you're at that level. But they were drinking, Brandon did the math earlier. Those 2 Magnum bottles were the same as 12 glasses of wine each. Was it what you said? Just pull up the chart. What chart? Do I have a chart? Have you sent me a chart? Yes. 0.8 is 2 drinks. That's that's how we used to say back in the day when we had 0.8, that you can have 2 beers and then you can still drive. So but in Denmark now it's 0.5.
Why did they pick 5?
What does that alcohol level?
Why is such a weird number? Why pick 5, not 4 or like 7? I don't know. 5 just seems like a weird number to me.
Because it's a round number. It's a half and a full. Don't think about it.
Okay.
It's politicians who makes the rules. Have you ever met a politician that could explain why they landed on that number?
True.
4 beers gets him to a 0.15. That's probably 1.5, 1.6 is where he would end up with 4 beers in his system. And if he's 103 pounds, that's like 1 beer. No, it'll remember he's also a professional drinker. So his system, He's probably
I-
going around with at least a 0.5, 0.8 normal level for intoxications just to
Yeah,
function.
I do wonder if they're going to get into that. I do wonder if they're going to have to cover, maybe his body kind of maintains an alcoholtosis or something like that.
Because it's not drink and the lawmakers are stupid. Yeah. Because you can't get votes trying to increase the legal limit, of course.
Time of your autopsy tell you about George Torres's level of impairment 11 hours earlier?
So I don't necessarily know that it was 11 hours earlier, but it was at the time of death, at or near the time of his death. That's what the blood alcohol level was. So at that level, everyone reacts a little bit differently to alcohol, and some of it has to do with whether or not somebody is accustomed to drinking alcohol or if they've never had alcohol. So you can develop tolerance. But at that level, there's going to be impairment of judgment. There can be impairment of motor skills. There can be slurring of words, something that's called disinhibition or lack of inhibition. And again, it's really variable from person to person. But those are the common things that you would see at that level.
Would that level of alcohol impair the ability to problem solve?
It can, yes.
That's BS because I can fix the world's problem when I'm above a 0.2. I just can't remember it the next day.
Drink for humanity.
You also stated earlier that you document your autopsy findings also photographically, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yeah, but that's a glass of wine at 13.5% alcohol would be the same as one beer, roughly.
Oh,
It's just how it translates.
This has been marked for identification as stage Q and been shown to defense.
You may.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as stage Q. Could you take a look at this composite of photographs to yourself and then look up once you're finished? Ma'am, do you recognize these photographs?
Yes.
Are these photographs a portion of the photographs that you took in your autopsy of George Torres in this case?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent how he appeared and how his injuries appeared to you at the time you performed your autopsy?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to move what's previously been marked for identification as stage Q into evidence.
No objection. What was pre-marked as states Q will be received into evidence without objection as states 13.
In your Honor, request permission to publish.
You may do so.
Ma'am, I'm showing you.
Is that a little cheeky snakeskin pattern
it
on her
does look
shirt?
like snakeskin pattern.
Wow. Don't like snakes, so let's get rid of that, Sarah. Let the chesticles fly.
Photo 1 from State's Composite. Tell us, what is this a photo of?
So this is an identification photo that's basically just showing from about the level of the collarbones up.
And this is George Torres.
Yes.
Did you note any signs of injury in this photo?
So there's some ecchymoses around the left eye. This picture, it's a little bit hard to see, but I think there's another one coming up. There's also an area of ecchymoses up here on the left side of the forehead with also some swelling associated with that. The lips have some contusions and small lacerations. And then on the left shoulder here, you can see a little bit of some ecchymoses here. Or again, ecchymoses are kind of like big bruises.
Turning to photo 2 from State's composite. What are we looking at in this photograph?
So this is his right arm near the elbow. And right here, you can see this kind of darker area. So this looks similar to an abrasion, but it's actually, it's what's called drying artifact. And again, this is one of the reasons that I think that he was in that suitcase.
So I will give Sarah a bit of a break here. It's kind of like the Karen Reed thing. If she looks stoic, then she's going to be called a stone cold BB. If she cries, then people are going to critique, are those real tears? So I will give Sarah some credit here and say that, it really is, there's not a lot of things that she can do here to make herself look good. I mean, we've seen it in other cases. If you show emotion, then they're crocodile tears. If you don't show emotion, then you don't give two cruds. So she really is, I mean, for as much credit as I'll give her, it is a terrible tightrope to have to try to lead a client through for the defense.
And they will always do the wrong thing, because if I polled the chat right now, half would say, well, she should show more emotion. Half would say, well, she would just be play acting. We see this in every trial we do. Oh, she didn't do well. She did do, and everyone finds it weird that they do or don't show emotions. So it's let's just agree that no matter how much emotion she shows or not shows, she's a massive B word.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything she could do short of just, confessing that is going to make her look good in this. And so, to be fair, to, give everyone, their due, there is nothing she can do here.
No, it'll always be wrong. And that's we saw that with the Karen Reed crowd. We thought she looked composed and professional. The Smurfs said, oh, she's showing no emotion. She's a cold-hearted B word. And that's, you'll always interpret for your emotion, and we don't know your baseline. But she's a narcissist, so she probably wouldn't do it. She did admit to hitting him with the bat to her battered spouse expert.
For a little bit longer. Most likely that was a pressure point where part of that suitcase was resting on his elbow in that area. And then after death, that tissue dries out, and that's the discoloration that you're seeing there.
Turning to States 3 from the composite.
So here you can see a little bit better. I don't know if you can get a feeling for this, but this area is what we call edema or swelling. So this whole area is edema. It's a little bit discolored, so ecchymosis. And then again, really at the corner of the eye here, you can see that darker discoloration. And so those are injuries from blunt force trauma.
States 4 from the composite.
So this is the left shoulder and arm. So again, you can see this kind of red to purple area. So this is all ecchymoses, and then a couple of linear abrasions or scratches.
States 5 from the composite.
This is the same area, just a little bit closer up. So you can see this whole area of ecchymoses. It's a little bit variegated, differential in color, but again, that's all blunt force trauma.
And what part of the body is this we're looking at?
This is the left shoulder.
I think Brandon had a lot of trouble with his at some point as well. So I don't know what happened, but thank you, RJ, for becoming a new member. Then you get a new sticker.
Yay!
States 6 from the composite.
That's the same area, but in this picture, we have a scale or the ruler.
And why do we use scale for rulers?
That's just to give an idea of how big the area is or how large the injury is.
States 7 from the composite.
So this is the left forearm and hand. And you can see the area right here that's a little bit red to purple, and then also right here on the left hand, right here and here. Those are all areas of ecchymosis, again, blunt force trauma.
States 8 from the composite.
Again, the left arm. Just from a little bit of a
Welcome,
different
Wade
angle, so you can
Raiders.
see, and a little bit with the elbow too here, but you can see all these areas of ecchymosis.
States 9 from the composite.
And now looking at the left hand, a little bit closer up, so you
We don't know such a thing. You will never know. And I know a lot of people are always asking, well, she seems very calm. She must be on downers. She's in a prison. They don't give them drugs if unless they have a medical reason. It's not enough that someone says, well, she's going to court. Can we just slip her a Xanax just to keep her calm? No. Whenever people start talking about it, no, she isn't. The only medication she will be giving is if she has a medical reason to get medication. She has some kind of, I think, some blood pressure related issues, is what I think I've heard. Other than that, they don't give defendants, and I see this in a lot of trials where people are asking, say, "Oh, they are so calm." They don't get a Xanax just because they're going to trial. That's not happening because it's people in prison. They don't get drugs. Well, they do, but
Yeah.
not legally. So unless she has some kind of severe anxiety disorder that demands that she has been placed on some kind of tranquilizers, she's not on drugs. And they never are in any of the cases. We saw the same in the Carly Gregg case. Everyone was wondering, oh, how much medicine is she on right now? They will only be given, and they probably won't even be given what they should be given because it's by the state. All your friends in the state will tell you they'll save all the money they can because these are dirty inmates. They don't need their drugs. So,
Well, also, depending on what you give someone, I mean, if you give them, certain things, it can really depress them. They can't be an active part of their defense. And then you have a possible appeal issue of, they were not competent because they could not help. And it's a pretty low bar, but yeah, it's
But that-
something where they have to tread a fine line, I would think.
So again, everyone's always talking about, oh, she seems so calm. She must be on med. No, they don't. You can't get slipped a little roofie just because that'll mean trouble. Maybe you should try to roofie her.
can kind of see a little bit better these areas of ecchymosis.
I do wish we would just say bruises or deep tissue bruises. I know that it's medically, that's the terminology,
States
but I
10
think
from the composite.
it is a bit like
The left
speaking
hand is closer
Klingon
up.
to the jury.
Well, they need an excuse for paying for 150,000 to go to med
States
school.
11 from the composite.
Sure.
So now we're looking at the back, and you can see that there are these linear abrasions in the mid-back.
Are those scratch marks for?
They can be scratch marks. They could also be blunt impact, more of just a straight-on blunt impact, especially being in that suitcase if there are objects in there.
What is the discoloration that we see around his shoulders and
Well, he might have needed to be, but then he has a medical reason. Because actually, in this case, what Sarah always say, she would have to be corpus mentis during her own defense. That's why they are always asked, are you on any drugs that could hinder your thoughts right now? So they don't get slipped a roofie just to keep calm in court.
and then and some other spots on his back as well?
Sure. So you're talking about this area?
Yes.
So that's called livor mortis or lividity, and that's one.
Yes, but the meds she's given isn't anxiety meds. She's given, I think she has diabetes and blood pressure meds.
The changes that we see again after death, and basically what that is it's postmortem after death, settling of blood in the blood vessels, and so it's dependent on gravity and it's dependent on the person's position. So what I mean by that is we're seeing.
Of course, he will have coached her, but have you met Sarah? You saw it on the
Yeah.
first cross-examination. It'll slip out of her. It'll slip out of her. Drunky
Well,
the bear will
even-
show up in court.
Even in the interrogation, when they first start asking questions, tell me and we'll both know.
Mhm.
I mean,
Drunky
she
the
does
bear is
not like
riding
being-
shotgun on this one, and Drunky the bear comes out when Sarah gets pressured.
It on his back because after the time of death, at some point in time, he was more positioned on his back. And the areas that are lighter, that's because for a couple of reasons. It could be the position of the body, meaning that it's not in a gravity dependent position, or there could be something pressing on it. So either one of those.
Stage 12, under deposit.
So those are those linear abrasions just shown a little bit closer up.
Stage 13 from the composite.
And the same, but with a scale.
Stage 14 from the composite.
So now you're seeing the left side of his back and also the back of his left arm. And
It's because I have to pay royalties to Jamie. I have to pay her 101% of all income on this stream as part of my agreement with the Jamie News Network. So I can use her picture on the screen.
Oh my
I have to, if I want her to talk, I have to up it to 150% of the income on the stream.
I'm here. I'm just working. I don't
you can
have
see
anything to
the
add to
areas
this.
here of ecchymoses, and these are a lot darker than some of the others that we've seen. One of the things that I did is I looked underneath the skin in these areas because they're so much darker and so much more dense. So I wanted to see if there was injury of the deeper tissues. So these areas are associated with hemorrhage or bleeding into the skeletal muscle, so the deeper tissues. And so that's just indicating more force applied to that area.
And when you did your internal exam, did you examine this area and did that inform your findings?
Yes.
Stage 15 from the composite.
And that's showing those areas a little bit closer up. So you can see that they're much more dense. There's at least 3 distinct areas here. There could be more than 3 impacts, but there's at least 3 separate ones that can be seen.
Stage 16 from the composite.
This is just showing the upper back and the back of the neck. We've got a linear abrasion right here on the back of the neck, and these were the ones shown in the earlier pictures.
And stage 17 from the composite.
And this is just showing the same area of the back and the back of the arm, but just at a different angle.
So we've discussed and seen evidence of many different injuries. In total, how many blunt impact injuries did you identify?
I can't give you an exact number. Again, you can have multiple impacts in a very close area, so it can be hard to discern each one. They can overlay each other, or they can be so close to each other. But at least 5 to 6, most likely more than that.
And when you were going through your body chart as well, and I guess we also saw some of it photographically, you also mentioned impact to the left side of the head.
Yes.
And I believe that was subgaleal.
Subgaleal, so kind of similar to what I was describing on the back. I looked at the underside of the scalp. And so in those areas on the left side of his forehead where there was the edema, when we reflect or we fold the scalp over, there was hemorrhage or bleeding that went through the entire scalp and was deposited on the skull. There was no associated skull fracture and there was no bleeding inside of the skull, but it was all in the scalp and deposited on the outer surface of the skull.
So under the skin, but not under the skull.
Correct.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is James Owens, and I'm one of the lawyers that represents Sarah Boone here today. And I've got 2 questions.
Jamie's royalty fund. So that's $2 two, two bucks
I'll
and
take
4
all of it.
cents.
You just don't even
Uh,
worry about it.
another Jamie royalty check. So that'll make
I love that he
I
gets
owe
up there like an AA meeting. Like, hi, my name is James Owen. I've been a client, or Sarah's been my client for 28 days. I've been not sober for an hour.
Can we first talk about the toxicology?
Yes.
The alcohol. You said you've done approximately 3,000 autopsies. And of those autopsies, how many years would that have been? What's that been for?
12 years.
Okay. So when you first got down here from Tampa, I think you were up in the Northeast, came down here to Tampa, that's when you started?
Yes.
And you would agree you've interpreted toxicology results in all or most of those cases?
Most, yes.
And you did order the blood alcohol test of the decedent in this case? And you said he was a 0.38?
No, 0.13.
0.138. And you also ordered the vitreous level
Yes.
of alcohol as well? And the result was a 0.213?
Yes.
And you would agree that's about 3 times the legal limit?
Close, yes.
Now, you would agree that at those levels, there are some pharmacologic effects from ethanol in the body?
Yes.
And I know you mentioned some, but you agree that level of alcohol in the body would impair somebody's judgment?
For most people, yes.
And their decision-making abilities?
Yes.
And it would release inhibitions?
Yes.
And they would be more apt to take risk that they otherwise would not?
Yes.
And of course, it would impair motor skills and potentially loss of balance?
Yes.
It would also impair coordination?
Yes.
Hand-eye coordination as well as fine motor skills?
Yes.
It also impairs memory, alcohol does.
Yes.
So there are lots of effects that ethanol has on the body.
Yes.
Now, you're aware in this case that George Torres, the decedent, stepped into the suitcase under his own power in a game of hide and seek.
That's how it was reported to me, yes.
Do you have any evidence to dispute that?
No.
Can you tell us when Mr. Torres drank the last drink he had prior to getting in the suitcase?
That I can't tell you because, if somebody had been drinking either periodically throughout a time period or continually throughout a time period, that's difficult to say.
So he could have stopped drinking an hour before he got into the suitcase, or 5 minutes before he got into the suitcase, or 4 hours before he got into the suitcase.
Yes.
We just don't know.
Correct.
Where is he going with this?
Do you have any idea at the time of the autopsy whether or not he was in the elimination phase?
So
Metabolism.
he was in the metabolic phase, yes.
The elimination phase is what I refer to it as. But
Yes.
okay. All right, now I want to talk about time of death determination. It's fair to say that you did not go to the scene that day that Mr. Torres was found.
No, a medical legal death investigator from our office went to the scene.
So there was an investigator with your agency named Ashley Hammermeister
Yes.
that went to the scene,
Yes.
and she would have prepared a report.
Yes.
And you would have reviewed that report.
Yes.
Do you agree that Fire and Rescue assessed Mr. Torres at 1:07 p.m. on that date, February 24th of 2020?
Yes.
Does that sound about right based on your case file?
Yes.
And so this investigator that we mentioned, she did not arrive on scene till 6:27 p.m., so nearly 6 hours after the body was discovered, she arrived.
Yes.
And the body was laying supine, stretched out
Yes.
in front of the suitcase.
Yes.
Now, you examined and assessed the body of Mr. Torres at the time of the autopsy,
Yes.
and you said that the body was ambient temperature.
Yes.
Is that the normal air temperature we're in today?
Whichever environment you're in, yes.
So the body was not stored in a cooler for 24 hours.
No, the body was stored in the cooler, but in the mornings when we get there, the bodies are brought out of the cooler.
Okay. How long had the body been out of the cooler before it was examined by you? Do you know?
Most likely an hour to an hour and a half.
And Melissa has it right here. His job is to throw all the confusion, the reasonable doubt, and draw away from any facts the state have. Again, on this channel, we don't do the law and crime stuff where we say, sit down, defense, she's toast. We let him do his stuff because maybe he can convince us that there's something wrong. She has a Fifth Amendment and a Sixth Amendment and I think 14th Amendment right to a defense.
Yes.
I can't remember the amendments. And he's doing his job. We don't hate him for doing his job. We hate him for fighting stupid motions. But again, remember, everyone has, and if you were caught in the same situation, which a few of you ladies out there, Irish, I'm looking at you, could end up in this situation. It wouldn't be a baseball bat, it would be the juggler. But everyone has the right to the best possible defense, even if they are the biggest POS on the planet.
Yeah, and the thing is, justice would not be served if we just had a show trial. You know,
Exactly.
even for the, people I really don't like, even for, let's say Chandler Halderson and Joel Guy Jr., I want him to have the best trial because I don't want the families to have to go through appeal, retrial, appeal, all these things. It is so important that, yes, I don't appreciate their tone, their tenor, their lack of coordination or, organization and their constant whining. But I do want her to have a fair trial. Just because we, maybe take a different view doesn't mean, we want her, to have a show trial and be taken out to the stocks. No, we want her to have a trial that she cannot appeal.
Exactly like Road Vortex said. Fair trial so she can't appeal.
Now, you said that the lividity was in the back, correct?
There's lividity in the back and also on the left side of the body as well.
And you agree the body is stored at the morgue on its back?
Correct.
Now, were you aware of the last time that Miss Boone, my client, actually saw her boyfriend alive or observed him in the video, in the suitcase by video from her phone?
I think in the report it was around 12:30 or 1 in the morning, somewhere around there.
Have you looked at either one of those videos from her phone?
I briefly saw one that the detective showed me.
Do you know if that was the 2-minute video or the 22nd video?
I believe it was the shorter one.
Okay. So would it be fair if I said the time last seen was around 11:30? Would you dispute that or?
No.
Okay. So really, from the time, I guess it was 11:30
Thank you, Danny G, for becoming a member.
that evening with the videos, and then you understood that the body was found around 12 hours later the next day or so. Would you agree that the death occurred sometime within those two periods of time?
Yes.
We don't know exactly when that is.
Yeah.
It would be a guess if we tried to speculate about that.
Yes.
Now, considering the 3,000 autopsies, how many cases have you ruled the cause of death as positional or postural asphyxia?
A handful of times. It's not very common.
So about 5 times or less?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about environmental suffocation in a little bit, but let's talk about this positional asphyxia component. What was your ruling in those 5 cases that you ruled that it was positional asphyxia? What was your ruling in terms of your diagnosis?
I'm going to object as to relevance.
Approach.
It's not cookies. It's a Danish thing called hindbærsnitter or raspberry snits. I don't know what a snitter is in English. It's a short crust pastry dough, bottom, raspberry jam, short crust dough top, some glazing, and some freeze-dried raspberries. Really
All this
good.
carb talk. Whew,
But it's really good with a cup of coffee.
they look awesome.
Doctor, you're familiar with Dr. DeMaio, Vincent DeMaio's textbook of forensic pathology?
Yes.
Would you agree that that's authoritative?
I'm sorry.
Would you agree that's authoritative or well-accepted book?
Yes.
Nope.
Environmental suffocation is a lack of oxygen. You would agree?
Yes.
Now,
They would have to have someone to testify that the video was from this and that, and it'll come in with probably the lead detective will be the one saying, we did an extraction on her phone, this is what we found. But he read what's said in the video. It is a fancy Pop-Tart. Just taste better, and because I made them myself, there's not all of the chemicals in it. And I have to do my thing again.
how many of those cases of the 3,000 that you've done where you found environmental suffocation?
Probably 2 to 3.
So very few?
Yes.
In a positional asphyxia case, that's kind of an example, like you get stuck in a hole and as you breathe, you sink deeper into the hole, or it tightens.
It can be anything that impairs the actual physical aspect of breathing. So that could be if the neck is flexed very much forward, so that way cutting off the air supply up towards the top of the head. That could be something compressing around the torso, so not being able to take a full breath. So those are examples of
Or another example may be falling out of a tree stand and getting suspended upside down,
Yes,
where the majority of the blood gets in the top half of the body.
yes,
Would you agree in those type of situations that the deaths occur fairly quickly, usually within an hour?
they can. It depends again on the situation.
Now, you said Mr. Torres was 5'2" and 103 pounds.
Yes.
Do you know how big the suitcase was that Mr. Torres was in?
I don't have the exact measurements with me.
So if I told you the measurements, you wouldn't know one way or the other what they were?
I think they were described to me, and I saw the pictures from the scene, and I was able to review crime scene photos to see what the actual suitcase was like.
Okay. Do you know the crown to rump length of Mr. Torres?
No.
Did you do any
They do that for child.
demonstrative
for
study
penises.
on the suitcase to determine what kind of spacing he would have inside that enclosure?
No.
And you don't know the position that Mr. Torres or his orientation at the time that he was in the suitcase was?
Again, I favor a fetal position, but again, I didn't observe him in the suitcase.
But you don't know exactly what the positional component was that caused, or what led you to believe caused his death.
Correct. I mean, based on his stature and what the suitcase was, he would have had to have flexed at the hips and knees to be able to fit into the suitcase.
So based on what you've said, you would agree you didn't know how much Mr. Torres would have been able to move and stretch his various extremities inside the suitcase, do you?
No.
So you would agree that his repositioning inside the suitcase would have been easier if he didn't have so much alcohol in his bloodstream?
I don't know that I would agree with that.
Excuse me?
I don't know that I would agree with that.
Well, you said his fine motor skills would be impaired by the alcohol.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant his ability to just move.
To reposition himself inside this, that would be limited to some degree by the alcohol he consumed.
It could be. I mean, that's not really a fine motor skill.
Okay. Or the use of his hands to unzip the suitcase would be affected by the alcohol that he had consumed.
Sure, that could be.
Okay. Now, the environmental suffocation deals with the lack of oxygen.
Yes.
Correct? And due to that insufficient oxygen that we breathe in the air, so you essentially run out of the oxygen in the space.
Yes.
So I guess years ago, how this sometimes would occur was a child would somehow get into an old refrigerator and it would be enclosed, so it was airtight, and eventually you would run out of oxygen.
Yes.
You would agree with that?
Yes.
And I think you said the normal makeup of air has about 20% oxygen.
Yes.
So we had either a decrease in the oxygen levels or a low concentration of oxygen.
Yes. Yes. And also, keep in mind that while he's in there, every time he's exhaling, he's pushing out carbon dioxide. Okay, so again, whatever oxygen is there is most likely diminished because it is an enclosed space. It doesn't have to be no oxygen, but it's decreased from what we would have in a normal room. But every time that he's exhaling, there's more carbon dioxide that's in that space as well. So that displaces any oxygen that might be there too.
So what volume of air do we inhale and exhale in a normal breath at rest?
Well, it depends. I mean, you can take a deep breath, you can take a shallow breath. It depends. And then there's also the rate at which people breathe. So that's variable.
So if it was average, would you say 500 milliliters on average?
Depends on the person.
Well, would you agree that at rest, you take a normal number of breaths per minute of 12 to 14?
That would be considered the normal range, yes.
So 6 to 7 liters per minute
Yes.
at rest? Do you know the volume of room air contained in that suitcase?
No.
Do you know how porous the fabric of that suitcase was?
No.
Did you run any tests on the suitcase?
No.
Were you aware that the suitcase, the lock on it or the zipper on it was broken? The pull handles were broken?
Yes, I did know that.
Do you agree if there is a portion of the zipper that's open that air can travel in and out of that space?
Yes.
Do you know what the anticipated exchange of gases would be through that fabric?
No.
Do you know if, the suitcase was out in the rain and it rained, do you know whether or not rain or the liquid would pierce the interior?
I don't know.
So from what I gathered, no studies were done on the suitcase.
Not that I'm aware of.
But that doesn't matter because the study is, did he die of asphyxiation? I know you're going to throw everything, the spaghetti, on all the walls, but again, I don't feel that's the way you should go. One, claiming that it's because he was drunk he couldn't get out doesn't give her the right to leave him in there. Two, how much or how little air could penetrate the suitcase. Doesn't matter as long as he ended up dead.
Well, yeah, and even if they tested the suitcase and it was, not airtight, it was semi-permeable or whatever, it doesn't negate the fact that he passed away. Even if they're trying to bring up an aneurysm or a heart attack, which did not show, maybe he had a, seizure. Again, those things were precipitated by you putting him in a suitcase, beating the heck out of him, and him not being able to go out. So even if they had NASA and the Canon bros in there and did all of the fancy GPS or CGI, not GPS, but all of that stuff, it still is the preceding thing. The thing that started this whole thing is him getting in the suitcase and her not letting him out. However he got in there, that is still the cause of death.
And her neglect of not letting him out, even beating him up, contributed to his asphyxiation.
So we don't know that zipper being busted, what exchange of air could go in it.
Correct.
I think you said there are physiological effects once the value or percentage of oxygen is decreased from the norm.
Yes.
You said 8 to 10% you become unconscious.
Yes.
And then a value of less than 8% death occurs.
For most people, yes.
Excuse me?
For most people.
And the normal oxygen saturation in adults and children is 95 to 100%.
Yes.
So if it decreases, the oxygen decreases less than 10%, someone would lose consciousness and die within less than 30 minutes.
So that's hard to give a time frame on that. Studies that have been done shown if the oxygen content is anywhere from 4 to 6, unconsciousness can occur in less than a minute, to death within minutes. But those have been empirical studies.
So, and I know that's kind of, maybe you tell me, if that's kind of why you gave the two different diagnoses, the environmental and the positional, is because the environmental may have had an effect or the positional may have had an effect. You're not sure, so you listed them both?
It's not that I'm not sure. I think that both mechanisms were at play at the same time, and that's not unusual in deaths, is there can be multiple factors occurring at the same time.
But you don't know the percentages, 50% for one or 70% for one, 30 for the other. You don't know.
No.
But you would agree in concert, if these two causes, the positional as well as the environmental, if they were acting in concert, that would render a relatively short amount of survival time.
I can't say.
You just don't know.
No.
Now, we talked about these blunt force injuries, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It would be fair to the jury to say that there were no broken bones.
There were no broken bones.
And it would be fair to say that the blunt force injuries on his body that the jury has seen here today did not contribute to the cause of his death.
Not likely.
I think you didn't put that anywhere in your report.
No. I included it in my report. I did not include it on the death certificate.
As the reason or contributing cause of the death.
Correct.
So she didn't break any bones, innocent.
Judge, can
Yeah.
I put up a couple of those exhibits? Doctor, are you aware that there was a baseball bat that was gathered in evidence in this case?
He's trying, like he did with the other not ME, but crime scene investigator, to try and shift blame. Say, well, you never tested it the right way, so it couldn't be Sarah's fault because you just didn't test all the parameters. He probably chose not to breathe.
I mean, it is a good point. They did not do a whole lot of testing. Again, it's a good thing to hold the state to their burden. They have to be able to prove that she did this, that he was in the suitcase, she did not render aid, and in fact, she attacked him. Yeah. So, but it is good to say, well, state, why didn't you do this? I mean, it is annoying, it is grating because we have that video, but he has to do his job.
Yeah, and remember, the jury isn't us. We had a almost 2-week lead into this where we went through all of her shenanigans. So we are biased as all heck. But for a jury that's sitting there listening to it for the first time, hearing, maybe why didn't they test the slugger or that needle or whatever it is? Again, he's just trying to raise reasonable doubt.
I didn't hear about that until later.
When is later? When did you first learn about it?
That might have been around the time that I was sitting for a deposition, but I can't quite remember. I don't have the file folder. I don't know when I was deposed.
Yeah, the ninja defense is never the right defense.
No.
I'm going to show you this exhibit. This is number 14. And this deposit exhibit is state's exhibit, I believe, number 13. And this is picture number 14. You see the
That would make it worse for her, because then she left. He already passed away. Well, of course, then you can claim, well, she unalived him, so it's self-defense. Yeah, I see what you're going, Mess. Yeah.
you said they were circular type injuries.
Yes.
And you've seen a regular baseball bat or a kid's baseball bat.
Yes.
A wooden bat. And if you were to swing that bat and hit somebody's body or hit a suitcase and the blunt force, that would be a linear line across that person.
It could be depending on the position of the body, the position of the suitcase, and the position or how the object came in contact.
What is linear injury mean?
So with linear injury is if you think, linear, it's more like a line.
Now, if you took the barrel of the bat, the very end of the barrel of the bat, and you poked into the suitcase with the barrel of that bat, would those spots there in this exhibit, is that consistent?
That's compatible with that, yes. That's compatible.
And then here's a close-up. This is picture number 15. Again, a close-up. Same question. Would that be consistent with poking the suitcase, if he's in the suitcase at the time, thrusting the barrel of that bat, the crown of that bat, with potentially run those injuries?
Yes, it's compatible with that.
Now, I want to draw your attention to the cardiovascular system. Do you have your report?
I do.
Okay. You describe the proximal third of the left anterior descending coronary artery having greater than a 75% narrowing of the lumen due to eccentrically placed firm yellow-white fibrolipid atherosclerotic plaque?
Yes.
And is
They
that
are going
pretty
with
much
heart attack.
verbatim with?
Yeah, it wasn't her fault. It was an underlying heart issue. So that's it. Danny T, you just became a member and now you have an 11-month membership. But I agree. Mo is the best. Jamie, she's here.
Jamie is
She said in the
awesome.
report.
Everything's awesome.
Yes.
Listen,
And that terminology is synonymous with a single vessel, high-grade atherosclerotic coronary artery disease.
Yes.
And in that location, it's kind of a classic location for what people refer to as the widowmaker,
Yes.
because of the location in that vessel that supplies most of the circulation to the left ventricle.
Yes.
If you had a spasm in that artery, that could nearly totally obstruct the lumen and cause a fatal heart attack, could it not?
It could cause a dysrhythmia, I guess.
I'm sorry,
A dysrhythmia or an abnormal beating of the heart.
but that could kill him.
It could.
But it didn't.
Did we just
He died.
establish that if she hit him really hard in the chest and he had a spasm, that's still killing him? What? That's just
Yeah,
a
and
different
again,
methodology.
But he died of asphyxiation. He didn't die from a heart attack. He died from asphyxiation. That's
The lumen is the inside space of the tubular structure.
Yes.
And so that was blocked, over 75%.
It was. But there was no evidence of myocardial scarring. So when the vessels become blocked, you prevent blood from getting to the muscle of the heart. So there was no evidence that there was any scarring. There was no evidence that there was anything that happened acutely. When that happens, we can see changes in the actual muscle of the heart. So there were no changes suggestive of that.
Well, let me ask you something. If he would get out of the suitcase on his own and he would have passed out or fell asleep on the couch and she would have woken up the next day about that time and came down, and he was dead on the couch, and you did this autopsy, would it be fair to say that in your ruling on cause of death, that single vessel coronary artery atherosclerosis would be your probable cause of death?
It could be, but any sort of injury overrides natural disease if the injury is significant, right? So you don't have to be a perfectly healthy person to have trauma and die. So it's very common that we see people that have
Bless you.
injuries for whatever reason, but also have a lot of natural disease. But we look at it as the injuries override the natural disease because especially atherosclerotic disease, that's considered long-term. Right? So that's been going on for years and years. People walk around with that all the time. So what's different is that we have trauma, and so that overrides natural disease. And sometimes natural disease can contribute, but again, it depends on the individual. It depends on the circumstances.
So absent the positional asphyxia or the environmental asphyxia, and he was dead, and you did the autopsy, it would be fair to say that you would determine this was a natural death from an isolated coronary heart disease, would you not?
It would depend on the circumstances. Again, I can't speculate on this case because I know what I know about
If
it.
you had nothing else, the widowmaker would have caused his death, or you would have to have assumed, having nothing else, that would cause his death.
I most likely would have given him cardiovascular disease.
Now, this ethanol metabolism that we talked about earlier, and there's a question about you believing he was in the elimination phase, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is it fair to say that George Torres, the decedent, was in the elimination phase since the blood ethanol was below the vitreous value?
Yes.
Given the vitreous value was at 213, is it justified in saying the decedent's blood ethanol level was at least a 0.213 prior to starting the elimination phase?
Yes.
And now you know that the normal elimination rate is, I believe, 0.015% per hour?
Yes.
Is that standard?
It's an estimate.
And so we have a difference of a 0.138 to the 213. So roughly
True, rolling
5
off
hours
there,
of elimination. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
So in other words, you agree there's a short interval where the vitreous and the blood are identical.
Yes.
And then the blood drops beneath the vitreous value as ethanol is metabolized in the blood.
Yes.
So is it fair to say, given the significant difference in the blood and the vitreous ethanol values, that the true vitreous and blood ethanol level had to be much higher than what is recorded in your report at the time that he passed?
At the time that he passed? No, this is reflective of the time that he passed.
Say again?
This is reflective, the 0.139, that's reflective of the time that he passed. There's not metabolism after death of the alcohol.
All right, well, let me
Ooh,
what I'm
I
saying
learned
is,
what I
he
learned
could have been
today.
prior to that time of passing, he could have, his blood alcohol level would have been much higher.
It was at least at the same level as the
At least the
vitreous.
two,
Yes.
at least the 213.
Yes.
It could have been much higher.
It could have been, yes.
Judge, if I can approach this. This is defense composite exhibit for identification, Jay?
Has the state seen it?
Yes.
It's the state's own evidence.
Please stipulate J into evidence.
Who was pre-marked as defense J will be received into evidence without objection as defense 1.
Judge, can I publish these?
You may.
Ma'am, there's 5 photographs, so just in front of the office. First one's number 5. What's this affect?
So that's the left hand. So you're looking at the outer surface of the hand, the knuckles, and 3 of the fingers.
Bruise there was top of his left hand?
Yes.
Right, and the same for picture number 4.
So that's the same, just a little bit further away and without a scale.
And then here is picture number 3.
So now you're looking at the thumb and the index finger.
And then shows some bruising on the hand.
Yes.
And here's picture number 2.
So what you're seeing here is, from the scene, our investigators put brown bags over the decedent's hands. And that's, we collect evidence at the time of the autopsy. So at the scene, brown bags are put on the hands to preserve any evidence. And so that's why you're seeing.
They just put a stipulation that it was entered into evidence. That's nothing.
So is their
because
theory going to be his hand was out flat and that's how they got the bruising on the top of the hand, meaning he was sort of getting out? It doesn't make you better if you beat the crap out of his hand after you've beaten him in the suitcase. That doesn't make any sense.
I was
Right.
looking at my medicine cabinet because I used to have Imodium. I don't have it. And let's just say I've been drinking and I still feel very dehydrated because
Oh, poor guy.
it's a rental. It's not staying.
We cut the bag open and we take a picture to show exactly what the hands look like.
You agree there's bruising here? On
Yes,
the back
there.
and also up around the knuckle area?
Yes.
Where the fingers, and also on the section here?
Yes.
And then here's the last picture on the bottom, which again is the left hand,
Yes.
showing the bruising on the top of the hand as well as the knuckle area.
Yes.
I have tried getting some electrolytes in me.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, that's what I got out
Any
of it.
redirect exam.
She,
You may proceed.
yeah.
You were asked
We can't do that in Denmark. I know you have those IV bars and stuff like that. Never seen that in Denmark because that's a medical procedure.
several questions on cross-examination about the alcohol level in this
To
case.
find out if I
I
can
believe
buy
it was a term, metabolic phase or elimination phase. Could you just explain for us what that is?
Sure. So in the toxicology testing, there's two different levels that I ordered for levels of alcohol. One is they look in the blood to see the level of alcohol. The other is in what's called vitreous fluid or eye fluid. And we look at both areas because that can give us an idea of whether somebody is metabolizing through the alcohol or whether it's still rising. It just gives us an idea sometimes of how close to death they were when the ingestion of alcohol happened. But basically, the level in the eye fluid trails behind what we see in the blood. There will be a small point in time, as we discussed earlier, that they will be almost the same. But you can just think of it as the blood alcohol goes up, and then a brief period of time later, the alcohol in the eye fluid will start to show. So again, it's just to give us an idea of whether somebody is metabolizing or whether they're still, the level is still rising or if they're still, intaking alcohol.
So the result in this case was indicative that George Torres's level was coming down.
Yes.
And I think some of the math was a little bit difficult to follow on the fly. But with that rate of dissipation, would it be fair to say that he would have been in that suitcase for approximately 5 hours because he couldn't be drinking whilst in the suitcase, that we're seeing this rate decrease between these two levels?
I have to be careful how you interpret it because, the numbers that I have from toxicology testing, that's from one point in time. I mean, we're collecting those specimens at the time of the autopsy. So that's only one point in time. It's possible, but I can't say for certain. All I can tell you is that at some point in time, his blood alcohol was at least the higher level that we saw in the vitreous fluid. So if, the calculation of the 5 hours, that's an estimate because again, everyone's a little bit different, but I think it's reasonable to say 5 hours. Yes, that's within reason to say that.
And obviously a pretty obvious point, but we don't continue to metabolize alcohol after death.
Correct.
You were asked about studies or tests being performed on the suitcase in this case.
Correct.
Would the presence of objects in that suitcase also affect the length of time a person may have survived in that suitcase?
I guess if there were a lot of other objects in there, that maybe could, occlude the mouth or nose, or maybe if that means if there's more stuff in the suitcase, there's less room for the person. So I guess.
Another variable that would also be present would be the opening of that zipper, would it not?
Yes.
So if the zipper was further open, potentially more oxygen could be coming into that area. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, there could be more oxygen coming in, but there's always the question is, would it be enough? I mean, because you can still have oxygen there, but it may not be enough. I mean, again, that I talked about before.
And there would be no way to know exactly how far that zipper was potentially forced open.
Correct.
I have no further questions.
This witness be released.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Oh, we finally have a witness that won't be recalled.
Sorry, approach for a moment.
That's not nice.
The defense is going out of their way to call everyone back.
Yeah, but it's more that SO is a female pig in Danish. So she's calling me a female pig. Indeed, I like you. This is the ME. Was the ME? Yes. Pharmacy for
I
Baker.
think
Well,
she did,
thank you. I need it.
I think she did a pretty good job. I think there can always be a better bridging of, doctor speak to layman speak. I don't know the makeup of this jury.
Members of the jury, it's 11:01. We did get a bit of a later start this morning due to those security issues. Do any of y'all need to take a break at this point in time? Raise your hands if you do. All right, court seeing no hands. State, you may call your next witness. Yes.
Yes, because
Very good point.
he can't change out the blood, the O2 in his blood. That's why he died. Exactly. He couldn't change out. And again, the O2 is being kept out as well with the gas, because it's, now I can't speak. That's why the good old garden hose in the car thing.
Yeah, it's a hard death to explain. I'm sure she hasn't seen many of these. So she did her best to explain it. I wish they would have focused on the head wound. It was a quite significant head wound. And they kind of made it out like, yeah, he just had a lot of bruises, but that was a quite significant head wound. So I know they're focusing on his heart, but when you have an intracranial bleed, that can also take you out.
I don't like that. Well, we can't DoorDash meds in Denmark. I have to drive to a supermarket to get.
Members of the jury, I have a matter I've got to take up with counsel outside of your presence. I promise it won't take too long. We'll bring you back in as quickly as possible. Again, same instruction I've given you previously. Please don't conduct any independent or investigation or research regarding the persons, places, things,
so much,
or charge involved, and do not have any conversations among yourselves or anyone else about those things. We'll bring you back in as promptly as possible. Thank you.
Luke Kai, sorry, dyslexia. He did have a periorbital fracture that went through the skull.
Thank you.
And the glia and into the cranium. So it was all the way down to.
Judge, James Owens here, and I'm here with Sarah Boone. The first exhibit is State's Exhibit F for verification. It is the title Stipulation Victim Identification, and it is signed by Mr. Cacciatore, Sarah Boone, and myself, October 2nd, 2024.
Okay. Any other stipulation?
The other is a stipulation of FDLE report, again signed by Dave Cacciatore Jr., Sarah Boone, and James Owens. It is it's listed as identification State's Exhibit N. It is a 2-page FDLE laboratory report generated June 3rd of 2020.
Can you approach with both of those documents, please? Thank you. Say anything else to add over and above what Mr. Owens identified? All right. Ms. Boone, good morning. You were previously sworn earlier today. I hold in my hand 2 stipulations. The first stipulation, pre-marked as State's Exhibit F, reads Stipulation of Victim Identification. Reads as follows. The Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., the defendant, Sarah Boone, as well as his lawyer, we have a scrivener's error there, James Sullivan. Okay. Sullivan Owens stipulate that the identity of the deceased in this case is George Torres. Signed the 2nd day of October, 2024. Ma'am, have you had the opportunity to go over this stipulation with your attorney?
Yes.
Do you understand what this stipulation means?
Yes.
Are you freely and willingly entering into this stipulation?
I am.
Did anyone force you, threaten you, or coerce you to enter into this stipulation?
No.
All right. The court accepts this stipulation. How do we want to handle the little issue with regard to his lawyer as opposed to her lawyer?
I'm fine with the court making an edit to scratch out his and insert her if that's acceptable to the defense.
Acceptable?
Yes.
Ma'am, is that acceptable to you as well?
It is.
All right, thank you. The court will make that handwritten interlineation, removing his and adding her. State, do you seek, we'll move this into evidence in front of the jury, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you, sir. Moving now to what was pre-marked to state's N. Ma'am, this is a stipulation of FDLE report. It reads, the Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., and defendant Sarah Boone, as well as his lawyer, James Sullivan Owens, stipulate to the admissibility into evidence at trial of the FDLE lab report authored by Carolina Benito on June 3, 2020. It bears Mr. Cacciatore's signature, your signature, and the signature of your attorney, Mr. Owens. Have you had the opportunity to review this stipulation with your attorney?
Yes.
Have you had the opportunity to review the 2-page FDLE report that will be attached to it?
Yes.
Do you understand what this stipulation means?
Yes.
Are you entering into this stipulation freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Did anyone force you, threaten you, or coerce you to enter into this stipulation?
No.
All right, the court accepts this stipulation. Any issue with striking through his and adding her state?
No, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
All right, the court will make that interlineation as well. Anything else we need to address, state? I will return these to you for the purposes of moving them into evidence with regard to these two stipulations.
Yes, Your Honor.
So nothing else?
Nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Defense, anything else? All right, thank you very much. Anything else we need to address before we bring back in our panel?
No, sir.
No, Your Honor.
All right, let's go ahead and stand.
So what was this? We stipulate that his name is Jorge Jr. and a lab report.
So I think they're stipulating to his label as a victim of this case, and then also some kind of lab report. I didn't quite catch it, but I think that this is part of the reason that the state's witness list will be truncated. It's going to be much lower because they've stipulated to this. Again, the defense can read the room too. The defense might know the longer they talk, the longer we have evidence piling up against Sarah. Maybe we want to shorten this too.
Could be, yes. And Edward Scott, I can't see someone manipulating a body into a suitcase without their free will. I've been saying this the entire time because people said, well, she knocked him down the stairs, he fell unconscious, and then she stuffed him in the suitcase, or he was so drunk. But the human body just doesn't manipulate that well when you're not willing. They have
The
agreed
size
to
of the
the
suitcase too is a big one. Like it was small. Like it wasn't a big guy.
Thank you. It's just so to make easier entry into the record.
Yeah.
For the record.
And bring back in our panel. Thank you.
They didn't. They're just saying that they don't have to go through the 20 hours of, I went to school, I did this, I have seen that.
Yeah, it's just going to make everything go faster.
Yes.
State, recognize our jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, recognize our jury. Yes. Members of the jury, thank you. Can be seated. Members of the jury, Ken, if you could, just confirm you complied with the court's instructions during that short break by raising your hands. Record reflect that all juror members have raised their hands. State, you may proceed with your evidence and testimony presentation.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, we'd like to move what's been remarked by definition in states F and states N into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
All right, what was pre-marked as states F will be received without objection as state 14. What's been pre-marked as states N will be received into evidence without objection as state 15.
And Your Honor, we would request that they be published.
Thank you. Members of the jury, I'm going to read to you some stipulations along with an instruction. When the parties agree that certain facts are true, that is called a stipulation of fact. You must accept stipulated facts as having been proven. However, the significance of these facts, as with all facts, is for
Yeah, it was a Scribner's error. They, instead of putting her in, they put his in, but they struck that.
you to decide. In this case, the stipulated facts that you must accept as true are as follows. Stipulation of victim identification. The Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., and defendant, Sarah Boone, as well as her lawyer, James Sullivan Owens, stipulate that the identity of the deceased in this case is George Torres. Stipulation of FDLE report. The Assistant State Attorney, Dave Cacciatore Jr., and defendant, Sarah Boone, as well as her lawyer, James Sullivan Owens, stipulate to the admissibility into stipulate into evidence at trial of the FDLE lab report authored by Carolina Benito on June 3, 2020. With that, State, you can call your next witness.
Meredith McCaskill.
Oh, I like her shirt or dress.
I do.
Ma'am, good morning. Could you please take a seat and state and spell your name for the record for us?
My name is Meredith McCaskill, and it's spelled MEredithMcCaskill.
Thank you. Mr. J, you may inquire.
Thank you. Where do you work, ma'am?
I am employed at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Orlando Regional Operations Center.
And is that also called FDLE?
Yes, it is.
And what do you do for FDLE?
I am a senior crime laboratory analyst in the biology DNA section.
Now, what is your educational background? We'll get into training and experience as well, but what's your educational background that allows you to do that job?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences from Clemson University and a Master of Science in Biomedical Forensic Science from the Boston University School of Medicine.
And when did you first start working for FDLE?
I started at FDLE in April of 2011.
Did you have any prior work experience as a forensic examiner of blood or biological or DNA evidence?
No, I did not.
So for the last 13 years, your experience has been with the FDLE?
Yes, that's correct.
And do you have any sort of in-house training and then continuing education that goes on as an employee at FDLE?
Yes. So when you become a crime laboratory analyst, you have to successfully complete a training program. This training program takes about 1.5 to 2 years. It covers all of our policies and procedures and manuals, reading textbooks and scientific articles, and performing a lot of in-house testing and training under the supervision of a qualified analyst. There's also written and oral examinations, and you have to successfully complete every part of that in order to work cases as a crime laboratory analyst. And then every year we have continuing education. So that's education that we need to do in order to stay current with new trends and technologies in the field.
Does the lab itself enjoy any accreditations, and what process, if so, does it go through to get them?
Yes, FDLE is accredited by an organization called ANAB. It's the American National Standards Institute National Accreditation Board. So we've been accredited for, I believe, over 30 years. It's a process where every 4 years they send people to come and inspect our lab, make sure that we're doing everything that we're supposed to be doing according to our policies and procedures. And then we're also following national standards that have been set down. That's every 4 years. It's very in-depth. And then we have additional kind of like spot checks every year just to make sure that we are maintaining everything that we are supposed to be doing.
Have you ever given testimony in court about your opinion about serology analysis or DNA analysis?
Yes, I have.
Approximately how many times?
Approximately 35 to 40 times.
Have you ever not been allowed to give opinion testimony in those areas?
No, I have not.
Can you tell us about the place, particularly within FDLE? Tell us about your workspace and what personal protection equipment you may wear when you're doing DNA analysis.
Yes. So in my workspace, I have what I call a clean side, which is where I keep all of my paperwork. And then I have my other side, which is used for actual screening of evidence items. So this is a surface where I can clean it with a detergent. I clean all of the instruments that I'm using. So scissors, markers to take notes, anything like that is cleaned with a detergent, both before I start and after I finish. And it's cleaned and maintained in between every item of evidence. So only one item of evidence is open at a time. And this is to minimize any potential contamination. So DNA from one item getting into DNA from a second item. I also wear what is called personal protective equipment. This includes a lab coat, face mask, gloves, and potentially a hairnet, depending on what type of evidence that I'm working with. And then the gloves are disposable, so they are changed before and after each item of evidence. It's also changed if I have to touch my computer to take notes, I change my gloves. If I have to touch another surface, I change my gloves. So it's a lot of procedures that we use in order to prevent my DNA from getting onto the item of evidence.
When DNA analysis is done, are instruments used to assist you in that process?
Yes, we have an instrument platform that we use that allows us to run the DNA in batches in a efficient manner. So there's multiple instruments that are used across the varying processes.
And do these instruments generate paperwork that humans such as yourself can then go read and interpret?
Yes, it does.
Now, in this particular case, you are not the analyst who examined the items. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you review the information that is generated by the instruments used by the analyst who did this work in coming to your own conclusions?
I was the technical reviewer on this file, so I reviewed all of the documentation and the paperwork and also the original analyst report.
All right. Now, one of the items that is said to have been analyzed was a DNA card. Are you familiar with what that is?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell the jury what that is?
Usually it's referred to as a DNA card or a bloodstain card, and that's just a card where somebody can spot blood, usually human blood, on it and dry it down. Then the analyst can take a cutting of that stained area in order to generate a DNA profile.
And is that typically the manner in which a decedent or a dead person's DNA sample is provided to the lab for analysis?
Yes, that's a very common thing that we see in decedents.
And can you explain to the jury how it is an analyst such as yourself would take that blood stain on a portion of the DNA card and develop a DNA profile?
Yes, so it usually is blood stained on the card, so you can identify that stain visually, take a cutting of that stained area, and then place that cutting into a sterile tube, which is then sent through the DNA process. So that's adding chemicals and heat in order to break the cells open and release the DNA into the solution, and then running it through the rest of the procedures where we determine about how much DNA is in the sample, make millions of copies of our specific areas of interest, and then generate a DNA profile that can be used for comparison to any questioned items in the case.
Do you use some sort of commercial kit to develop DNA profiles on known items such as this?
Yes, we do.
Approximately how many locations back in 2020 would have been tested on this DNA card?
In 2020, it was 21 locations.
All right. And in going through this process, is there a process that amplifies the amount of DNA?
Yes, there is.
Can you describe that?
Yes, so we need to amplify or make millions of copies of the specific areas of interest that we're looking for. We don't want to make copies of the entire DNA molecule. We're just wanting to isolate those specific 21 areas and make copies of those specific areas in order to generate the DNA profile that we use in forensic DNA analysis.
And do you know what a short tandem repeat is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
Short tandem repeat, we also call them STRs. That's just what we're looking for in the forensic DNA analysis. There are small, short areas of repeating DNA pieces. So for example, at somebody's DNA profile at a specific location, you can have a set of 16 repeats and a set of 17 repeats. And that's just this one little piece of DNA and it repeats 16 times. And then you have a piece that repeats 17 times. And it's the number of repeats that is different from person to person.
And you said you might get 16 at one spot and 17. Let's just be clear on what we're talking about. On one particular location, or well, all of them, do you get DNA from mom and dad? Could you explain that?
Yes, so you get DNA from your parents. So it's inherited. You get half of your DNA from your mom and half from your dad. So when I'm talking about the short tandem repeats and the example of a 16 and a 17, that could mean that you got a set of 16 repeats from one parent and a set of 17 repeats from the other parent. So it's just the copies that you get from your parents.
And you might happen to have 16 from each.
Yes, that's also a possibility.
All right, and so the chemicals end up copying about, you said 21 areas in 2020?
Yes, so there's 21, and then we look at several areas that are on the gender marker. So it was 3 areas on the gender markers.
And each of these locations will come up with some sort of number like 16, 17, 4, 4, so on and so on.
Yes, that's correct.
Were you able, in reviewing the instrumentation data in this case, was the DNA profile that was said to have come from Mr. Torres, was there able to be a full DNA profile at those 21 locations developed?
Yes, a complete profile was obtained for that sample.
Now, can you tell us what a buckle or a buccal swab, sometimes people call it each, which way is the right way?
I usually use the word buckle, but buccal is not incorrect either.
All right, and what is that?
It's just a swab that we can use as a reference sample from a person. So all of our swabs just kind of look like a long Q-tip with only one end. And then you just take that cotton tip end and rub it on the interior of your mouth to get a good DNA sample. You have a lot of cells on the inside of your mouth and a lot of saliva. So that's a good source to use for a known sample from a person.
And these long Q-tips, I believe, as you described, are they put into a box that is designed in a way so that the Q-tip doesn't touch the edges of the box?
Yes, I've seen it in boxes like that, but I have also seen it where they've been put back into the original paper packet container. So either method is fine.
And did the FDLE in this particular case, in the data that you reviewed, was there buccal swabs represented as being from the defendant's Sarah Boone?
Yes, there was.
And in the process that you've briefly described for the jury already, can you just tell us if it's different in any way to take a part of that cotton swab to develop a DNA profile than a piece of the DNA paper?
No, it's the same process. With the buccal swabs, I'm just taking a small cutting of the cotton area of the swab, placing it in a tube, and then running it through the exact same DNA process.
And was a full profile at the 21 locations able to be developed for the buccal swabs represented as being from Ms. Boone?
Yes, a complete profile was obtained for that sample.
Were there also what we call unknown samples that were examined in this case?
Yes, there were.
And can you describe the difference between a known and an unknown sample for the jury?
Yes, a known sample is a sample from a specific person. So that's like the example of a buccal swab. I know that sample came from that individual, and I can use that as a way to determine that particular person's DNA profile. An unknown sample is just a sample where we don't know whose DNA or if there is any DNA on that sample at all. So those are question items that can be, once a DNA profile is obtained from that item, can be compared to the known profiles obtained from individuals.
And in this case, was there an unknown item labeled as DNA swabs representative coming from Mr. Torres's fingernails?
I believe it was fingernail clippings from Mr. Torres, yes.
All right. And typically, I know you didn't do the work on this particular case, but in reviewing the notes and in your experience, do these DNA samples from fingernail clippings come in as swabs, like a buccal swab?
So sometimes they can come in as swabs, but other times they come in as just fingernail clippings. So taking the clippers and just cutting off the ends of the fingernails. And then I've also seen it where they've been scraped using pointed sticks.
And so if there is a swab that came in represented as being from the fingernails, then that would go through the process as you previously described for the buccal swabs.
Yes, that's correct.
And if it comes in as fingernails or scrapings, do you all have to make your own swabs?
Yes, that's correct.
And how would you go about doing that?
We have prepackaged swabs in our lab. We can then use some sterile deionized water and drip that onto the end of the cotton tip to make it a little bit moist so that it can pick up any DNA that is left on the item. And then we just swab the surface of the item, allow the swab to dry, and then cut it and place it into a tube for the DNA process. So we're just making our own swabs at that point.
And was there a profile obtained from what was represented as being a DNA sample from Mr. Torres's fingernail clippings?
Yes, there was.
And did it match either of the two known profiles that we've just discussed here this morning?
Yes, it did.
Which one?
Mr. Torres.
Were there any results indicating foreign DNA on this item?
No, there were no DNA results foreign to Mr. Torres obtained from either set of fingernail clippings.
Likewise, was there something examined in this case represented to be swabs or DNA samples from Ms. Boone, the defendant's fingernails?
Yes, those were swabs that were sent represented as being from her fingernails.
And so just like the buccal swabs that come in as a Q-tip, and then you would test that in a similar manner?
Yes, that's correct.
Was a profile able to be developed from what was represented as being swabs from Ms. Boone's fingernails?
Yes, there was.
And did that profile match either of the two known profiles that we've been discussing this morning?
Yes, it did.
And whose was that?
Miss Boone's.
Now, in regards to both of these last items that we talked about, the fingernail swabs from each Mr. Torres and Ms. Boone, is it expected that their profile would be developed from DNA swabs from their fingernails?
Yes, it is. All of those samples were represented as being from those particular individuals, so their DNA is expected to be on those items.
Was there any DNA foreign to Ms. Boone on those samples that were represented as coming from her fingernails?
No, there were no DNA results foreign to Miss Boone obtained from either set of fingernail swabs.
Now, with this amplification process that you've described, is it PCR?
That is important.
Yes, it is.
How sensitive?
Well, so Sarah Boone also wasn't fighting him because we know she has a tendency to claw people. Now,
Yeah.
either she washed her hands. I don't know that that was maybe in the thought process, but it does show that, as she said, she didn't lay hands on him. She laid bat on him.
Yeah.
So she is
there w-
technically correct.
Yeah, but that makes it even worse, in my opinion, because if there was none of her DNA, then the imminent
yeah.
danger that she self-defended from wasn't imminent because it was non-existent.
Yeah, it does again put a hole in this whole theory that the state or that the defense is trying to bring in.
Yeah.
It, it shows that they weren't actively fighting. She wasn't up close and personal. Again, I don't think a hand coming out of a suitcase is a reason to off someone. And I think that's going to be a tough sell to the jury. But maybe they have a lot of experts. Maybe they have the crime scene reconstructionist who's going to explain that this was a heart attack. I am willing to entertain those ideas should they be presented. But honest to goodness, as a juror, I see that video, it's kind of done. I would not be able to be impartial after that video.
They are just putting in all the we must put this evidence in. That video will sink her with 9 out of 9 jurors.
Is it when, a sample is taken from an unknown area such as fingernails?
The PCR process is pretty sensitive, and over the years, as the science has evolved and testing has changed, the process has become even more sensitive over the years.
And hypothetically, if two people are living together and are intimate partners, quite frankly, would you expect the intimate partner's DNA to show up on swabbings from their fingernails?
Yes, it's possible that their DNA would show up if they're in close contact with each other.
But in this particular case, after reviewing all of the instrumentation data, there was no DNA foreign to either of their fingernail clippers, both clippings or swabs from their fingernails, both Mr. Torres and Ms. Boone.
Yes, that's correct.
No other questions?
Any cross-examination?
Ooh, aggressive. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Once you develop a profile, are you able to take that profile?
No, I don't think she has the smarts to figure out what they will do to her. She didn't believe she would ever be arrested. She believed that I talked my way out of this, everything's fine.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think she had the forethought to clean her
Nope.
nails. I think she assumed she was going in there to get her phone. I genuinely feel like she was like, I told them we were playing, everyone's going to buy this, and I'll be back home with my cell phone soon.
Yeah.
And compare it
And I
to
think
other
Special
possible
K is a little behind.
DNA on objects or
Well, I
items?
don't know. Maybe she has a big.
Well, if it's a DNA profile that is obtained from a questioned item, we can compare that to profiles from known individuals.
And in this case, an example of that, if an object from an unknown source, you could take that and compare it to a known profile. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you get a match with that comparison, what can you take from that?
Just that is the DNA profiles are the same.
So if it's an object, let's say like a bat, and there's a DNA profile that's obtained from the bat, and it matches a known profile, could you make the conclusion that that person touched or handled that bat from the known profile?
No, I can't. There's nothing in the testing that we do at FDLE that will allow me to determine how any DNA ended up on an object or how long it's been on that object.
Now, you said that in this case, what was sent for DNA comparison?
In this case, there was a bloodstain card or a DNA card represented as being from Mr. Torres, buckle swabs represented as being from Ms. Boone, fingernail clippings from both hands represented as being from Mr. Torres, and then fingernail swabs from both hands represented as being from Ms. Boone.
Those are the only items that were sent to your lab for comparison.
Those are the only items sent to the DNA lab, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Any redirect examination?
No redirection can be excused as far as the state is concerned.
Defense?
And again, all of this is just they didn't do their testing well enough. They could have found the ninjas if they just tested a little bit further.
Yes. All right, ma'am, your excuse. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
State legal next witness.
Brandon, I think you have to be in the Oklahoma Panhandle because that's a legal gray matter.
Or Canton,
Okay.
but dial him, take him to an airport.
Number one, if you could take a seat, state your name and spell it for the record, please.
First name is Janella, Junella. Last name is Wadden, UAD as in Delta, AN.
May it please the court?
May proceed, sir.
Where do you work, ma'am?
I'm currently employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office here in Orlando, Florida.
And what is Sheriff Mina currently having you do?
I'm currently, my current position is a digital forensic examiner.
And how long have you held that position?
I just hit 6 years.
And can you tell us about, and we're going to break it down, education, training, and experience. Let's just talk about your education. What's your educational background prior to becoming a law enforcement officer? In particular, what is relevant to being a digital forensic examiner?
I actually started in crime scene investigations with the Sheriff's Office. So I have a bachelor's in forensic science through the University of Central Florida. Upon transferring over to our digital forensics unit, I became a certified computer forensic examiner through the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists.
And it's IACIS?
ISIS, yes.
And can we call it ISIS?
Yes.
Don't do that. Don't call it ISIS. We have a Danish, I think it's Danish, maybe it's Swedish. Everything bad is from Sweden. Sugar-free ice cream and stuff like that, which should be banned by the Geneva Convention. That company was named because ice in Denmark is ease. So it's ease, which translated into ISIS. So they changed their name a couple of years
to
back.
Daesh. They were like foot.
Yeah.
Foot ice cream.
Yeah.
Well, if it doesn't have sugar, it is foot ice cream, and I say it's okay.
Yeah, that could have been no. I did get a yellow mark on.
Oh, sorry.
Right. No, it's funny. I got it on my Danish upload about this case, and then I got it on my late night stream with the expert Sunday morning, where I said nothing. We were just talking for an hour.
YouTube is
back
being
at it.
super hinky lately.
Yeah, that's why they changed their name. It wasn't that good of a name.
How do you say it?
IASIS.
They run into Kanye
All right.
West.
I just want to shorten it for today.
Yes.
All right, so IASIS. Tell us about that program that you went through with IASIS.
I don't
to
need
become a digital
sugar
forensic
free.
examiner.
Yes, the beginning portion of it is in classroom training. It's normally only hosted in 2 different locations around the world, one being here in Orlando, the other one normally being
He didn't own a phone. They shared a phone.
somewhere over in Europe. They actually just expanded a 3rd location over in Australia. So again, the first 2 weeks are in classroom training, normally with over 300 other students. And then the next 5 to 6 months are all a peer review type training where they give you problem sets on how to, it goes from basic education on computer forensics to how to recover data. Could be pictures, could be videos. You're not sure until you pass one step to move on to the next one to figure out what you're essentially what kind of questions you're going to get.
All right. We'll take a break from the education training experience for 1 second. On February 23rd, 2020, were you called out to a scene?
Yes.
And does that happen from time to time as a digital forensic examiner as opposed to your previous duties like CSI, which would always go to the scene?
Yes, as a digital forensic examiner, we are required to come out on scenes if requested.
May I approach the witness with E for identification?
You may.
Showing you E for identification, you recognize states E for identification?
Yes.
And how is it that you recognize that?
I recognize the front label or the portion filled out on the envelope with my handwriting, as well as evidence tape sealed.
Yeah, and so was Shorty. All of these television stations have very high copyright protection, and it's really hard battling against a fair use on most of them, unless you are a very big, powerful channel. So just remember that when you want to show the Dateline. I think it's an interesting one to do a rundown of, but it's just almost impossible. And I do still have my Sinclair group strike, so I don't touch it.
Also initialed with my initials.
And the information on it includes like your case number and some of the other information you just answered?
Yes, case number, date of collection, and the item description.
And what is said to be contained inside of that envelope?
An Apple iPhone model XS with a pink case.
All right, and if I am not incorrect, I think there's 2 sets of evidence tape on that item?
Yes.
Can you tell us about each set?
The first set, which is the red tape here, initially when I collect or sometimes when we receive items from crime scene investigators, the packaging necessarily doesn't have to be sealed just because the phone might have to be kept charged on prior to us receiving the phone. So in this case, I did collect the item from the residence. I brought it back to our office. And then once I was done with my exam, it later gets sealed, again, with my initials and dates. And if there's later on an evidence review or somebody needs to review the item again, if we need to do an additional examination, the package might be reopened and then resealed again, hence the blue tape here at the bottom.
All right, other than the blue tape, is that item and the packaging substantially in the same condition when you were done examining what is said to be contained inside?
Yes.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
If you would, could you open up this package and, without showing it to the jury at this point, see if you recognize what's inside of the envelope?
Yes.
Yes, there's a phone with a pink case inside.
Do you recognize that as the item that you collected from the scene that you went to on February 23rd, 2020, and then later examined?
Yes.
All right. So, this scene, February 23rd, 2020, where is this scene?
I believe it's 4740.
It could be the ninjas. Again, it's just to make it bulletproof. No one else's DNA was at the scene because ninjas wear gloves.
True.
Can I refer to my report for the address or the numerical?
If it would refresh your memory,
yes.
Go ahead, and then when you're done refreshing your memory, let us know if your memory was refreshed.
Yes. The
memory refreshed.
Yes.
What is your answer?
4748 Franz, not sure if I'm saying that correct, court, apartment number 3.
Now, I know you work for the sheriff's office in Orange County, but I still need to ask, is this in Orange County, Florida?
Yes.
All right. Now, you collected that item. May I move E for identification and evidence at this time?
Any objections?
No objection.
What was pre-marked as E will be received into evidence without objection. The seats.
My buddy had a bakery, and a guy applied for an apprenticeship. He showed up with his dad, and his dad said, "Well, he's so young, he can't really get up before 8 in the morning. Is that okay?" No, you're a baker. You will start at 4:30 in the morning. Yeah, he can't do that.
Yeah.
Can you change that time? You're not going to get the job. Why not? He really wants to be a baker. Because you're stupid.
And I'd really love to be a rhythmic gymnastic person, but my body, hips, and flexibility won't allow me.
I blame I blame Newton for that one.
I blame my severely impaired relationship with gravity on that one.
Yeah, but if Newton didn't find gravity, all of us would be floating.
True. And it was an apple. Biblically aligned, I say there was something there. Who's the woman that threw it at him? He's like, I figured out gravity. My wife threw an apple at me.
I was sitting out here relaxing below the apple tree. She tossed it in my face, said, "Have you done the laundry yet?" And he figured out gravity.
After he regained consciousness.
Yeah. Yes, she had a phone that he was allowed to use.
16.
Well, his little prince couldn't get
Did
up
you do
that
anything
early.
with that item while you were on scene?
Yes.
What is it that you did with that item while you were on scene?
I was requested to come out. I was informed from the detectives that the user that...
Well, Hala, I don't care for your anti-science. The next thing is you're one of those spherical believers. I'm sad that public schools have taught you all that crap.
Gave consent for us to download her phone. So I responded out, and once I located the phone, I immediately started to extract the data from the phone.
All right. So now let's talk about what tools you use to do that. I assume there's some software involved with this process.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your familiarity and the training that you had in regards to using that software back in the time of February 2020?
Yes. One of the main tools that we use for data extraction is called Cellbrite. I did obtain, again, transitioning to our digital forensics unit, I obtained 2 certificates with Cellbrite, which is an operator certificate, knowing how to operate the hardware and the extraction software, as well as a certificate in their physical analyzer software, which is more used for the analysis part. So once we download the phone, we get a digital file, which to us is a lot of data, which humans, we can't read. So their software basically makes it more readable for us humans, which we can then generate a report in different formats for review. So in this case, we used Cellbrite. They actually started to develop software for cell phone companies. So if you remember back in the day when you went to go upgrade your phone and you had to go into a brick and mortar store, they actually had the software to help transfer your old data from your old phone and transfer it to your new phone, like your contacts, your...
Have a good night's sleep, Adelaide Lass, and good luck with the eye doctor in the morning. Yeah, we can't trust this now. Can we pause on this? We're pausing right now.
Pictures, your videos, a lot of the data that you didn't want to lose when upgrading your phone. But they are now a predominantly digital forensics company, and they provide the software that we use to extract data off of digital devices.
And is
Oh,
there
are they
any
going to get the
hardware
Wiener
involved
guy
to use
founder?
this software?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, in this case, especially at that time, we had two options. There was a portable tablet. In this case, you can still use a computer, and they have sister software that mirrors the exact same software that's on the portable tablet. So in this case, I had my call-out laptop with the extraction software installed on it, and just like you would to connect your phone to, let's say, your computer to export photos or take photos off of your phone if you want to save them. We're doing essentially the exact same thing in the field where we're connecting it to our computer and we're letting the software pull all that data or the contents off of that phone.
When you were told that you had Ms. Boone's password to her phone device, do you do anything to try and make sure that the data cannot be manipulated or destroyed from the outside world?
Yes, it's standard protocol. Like once we receive a phone, hopefully somebody did it before it's handed to us. But again, if we're responding out to the scene or we're the only ones that are interacting with the phone, we for sure try to, if we are given a passcode, we try to confirm the passcode. And then the phone is immediately put into airplane mode, which will disconnect it from any outside network. And we also try to ensure, because not always, once you place your phone into airplane mode, it doesn't always turn off your Bluetooth and or Wi-Fi connections. So we may go in and make sure that those settings are also disabled before we extract the data.
All right, take us through this extraction process. I understand that there are many different levels of information that you can get depending on a lot of things that you'll tell us about. Can you tell us the level of extraction we were able to do on site with this cellular phone device?
Yes, for this specific phone, we were trying to minimally get the user data. Again, the stuff that you guys can see when you're looking through your phone, your calls, your messages, your pictures, your videos. And in this case, that's the level of support that the on-scene software that we're able to use is able to download from the phone, especially with having a password or passcode.
All right, so I think we're all familiar with Windows. I think Mac has its own special iOS operating system as well. Can you tell us about the operating system that was on this particular cellular phone device?
Yes, Apple has its own operating system, iOS if you have an iPhone, and of course, even if you have Android or Apple, you're constantly getting notifications saying it's time to update your phone to the newest software. So in this case, it's an iPhone, so it's running their short version of iOS.
Can you also extract data that has been quote unquote deleted from the operating system? And can you just tell us all about that?
Yes, it is sometimes a possibility. It's not always guaranteed, but we sometimes have more advanced tools that can potentially pull that data from the device. And then later, once we get that download, we can put it into that software and normally will give us indications on whether or not data has been deleted.
And so if a particular photograph or a Word document or some sort of file has been deleted from the operating system, may it still remain on the phone device or computer device?
Yes.
It may still be locatable with your software tools.
But that is the hope. Again, not always guaranteed, but again, that's why we're trying to go in there and look for that the data behind the scenes to see if we can recover those artifacts. Yes.
Did you later do another extraction of this phone device back in the office?
Yes.
And tell us if it is different in any way, how your software or hardware was different in doing it at the office.
Yes, in this case, we use, again, a more advanced tool, which is able to capture, the technical term is a full file system. So we're capturing that whole filing cabinet, you would say, of the data stored on the phone with, again, the probability to not only collect possibly deleted data, but also your systems information, application data, like your social media, messaging apps, everything aside from your normal user data, like your calls and messages and pictures and videos.
And what level of capture, and if you answered it in that, I'm sorry, what level of capture were you able to do?
Again, in this case, I was able to do the full file system back at the office on scene. The technical term is an advanced logical or logical extraction, again, which encompasses your generic user data on your phone.
And the level of extraction you did at the office, does that encompass data that is outside of the operating system or in unallocated space?
It can include that data, yes.
Okay. Now, what kind of information can be generated by this computer software tool that you used to make it presentable for a human such as yourself or the members of the jury to review?
Brandon, have you noticed how old people our age were back then, and now it's almost like they're 20? It's weird how time works.
Yeah, in the software, it will place the data in data categories. So it's organized. We can, if we just want to search between messages, we can go in the messages category. If we want to look at logs, like maybe data that your phone's recording, like locations, app activity, that's also presented in its own data category. And it also has the ability to put all that data in chronological order in what they refer to as a timeline. So we can also see all that ongoing data in the timeline section. And if we need to, we can either narrow down to a small scope of time, or if it's requested, we can get all the data all in that timeline to whoever wants to review it.
And for instance, if there's an entry on the timeline that says, April 1st, 2016, photograph ABC was taken. Are there separate folders that are generated by the software tool that has all the images, such as that still photograph, generated?
Yes, when we export it or generate like in a PDF version of that report, all that data is categorized in a PDF, but it also exports a copy of that same data, such as images and videos, in separate subfolders. So if I just wanted to go look at the pictures from the phone directly, I could just go into that subfolder and just look at all thousands of images that might be exported from the phone.
And is there identifying information such as an IMEI that is generated by the software tool? And can you tell us what these things are?
Yes, the IMEI is one identifier that your cell phone has to help authenticate it to your cell phone network. It also is like a serial number unique to your phone. And in this case, our software is able to read and report all those device identifiers from your phone, including an IMEI.
And do you take actual photographs of the cellular phone device, like the exhibit we just put into evidence, to document it before or after you do the extraction?
Yes, just like in crime scene, the cell phone digital evidence is essentially another form of evidence. So we always try to document the current state, condition, whether it's locked, unlocked, and if again, in this case, we were provided a passcode. So I normally like to photographically document the phone's identifiers or accounts that may be logged into the phone.
Prior to trial, were you asked to look at two different exhibits to see if they represented a portion of that timeline you described that can be put into the PDF report form, as well as some of the images and videos from this extraction that you performed on the device that's in evidence?
Yes.
May I approach?
May.
I think Jedi just was right.
Showing you first is O for identification. Did you have an opportunity to review that this morning to make sure that the portion of the PDF and the images in a separate folder there were part of the extraction that you did on this device that we're talking about?
Yes.
And was that accurate?
Yes.
Probably a good time for a trigger warning. This could be the two videos extracted from the phone. If you are easily anything, well, if you're easy, you can DM me. But if you don't like gruesome things and easily disturbed, probably a good time to, if they put on the videos, they are very, very, very disturbing to listen to.
And I think some of the texts are pretty indicative of Sarah's personality in daily life. So again, I don't expect that evidence is going to come in now. I believe the state is not going to open that door. They're waiting for Sarah to bust it on open, and then it's going to be on, because right now they're trying to keep that, closed. But definitely the defense is going to open it wide up. And then a lot of things are going to come out that, yes, don't look good for George, but also don't look good
Great for Sarah.
for Sarah.
They're not doing the videos. Thank you, dear Daraksani. We're not that far behind. We're 10 minutes behind. But again, if and when
Chief identification, is that another carve out of the PDF timeline as well as videos and photographs from that device?
Yes.
All right, this time the state will move O for identification into evidence and reserve on PDF.
With regard to states O.
with all those
pre-marked as
YouTubers who's
states O
going
will
now
be received into evidence without objection as state
because
17.
of funny business.
You may.
I probably shouldn't say stuff like this.
Open up the file labeled extraction.
Oh, it's just Cellbrite reports. No, I hate these. For those of you who haven't seen a Cellbrite report before, this is what a Cellbrite report is. It'll store whatever goes on the phone. It'll put in a timestamp 23/2/2020 at 10:21:38 p.m. UTC 5, which is East Coast time, and it used a corn apple camera. But this is what we see in court when they present us Cellbrite, and then you'll have if it's like a text or a photo, they will put those metadata in there as well. It's just Cellbrite reports are immensely boring to look at, but we can speed it up because they're just looking at it.
All right, so sorry about your neck. Looking at entry 31079, can we just go column through column and explain what we're looking at?
Yes, the first column normally is just an assigned number, just like a line item number for the report. Because again, this is an excerpt. There could be thousands and thousands of line items when you're looking at the entire timeline. So the far left-hand column is just a line item number, followed by again, the data category for whatever data you're looking at. In this case, there's a couple listed as application usage and then location data.
Let's talk about the column that has dates and times, and can you explain to us what UTC -5 means?
Yes. Another column, again, we're looking this at a timeline, so we want to know dates and times. So we'll include the date and time of the data that was recorded onto the phone. And this report was adjusted for our local Eastern Standard Time here in Orlando, Florida, so UTC -5.
And going up to the top line there, 31075, that indicates that there's a start time for the application com.apple.camera, and then going back to our original one, 31079, that's the end time. Can you tell us what that means?
Yes, so Apple is very good about recording activity on the directly from your device. When you open up a certain application, such as the camera, Apple is making note that you, in this case, it's indicating a start time. So you opened up your camera at 10:21:36 p.m. And then you stopped using it, maybe closed it out or stopped recording at 10:21:38 p.m.
And in this portion of the PDF timeline, there does not appear to have been any videos or photographs captured while the camera was open. Is that accurate?
Based on that excerpt, I don't see a recorded media file.
All right. In the surrounding entries, can we just talk about what I would unfairly probably call spam of locations? What is going on there?
Again, if there's usage, application usage, or you're just in a really good location, or your device is just set to record locations wherever you are, your phone is also recording that data as well. And in some cases, like again, your phone, if you have it set for your camera to record your location when you take a picture, again, like when you reopen that picture, it'll show you, hey, you were located at 2500 West Colonial Drive. That's that data that's being recorded in the background while you're using that application that might have that permission to record that data.
Can we just go column by column through the first entry here, 16498? What does instant messages mean?
That's referencing text messages.
Second column, outgoing. Does that indicate there's an outgoing communication?
Yeah, so these will reflect outgoing or incoming depending on the recipient or sender.
The next column, there's a 1. What does that mean?
That just might be like one entry, one message. Don't see the header for the columns. That one I'm not unsure of.
All right, the date and time we've already explained. Let's talk about the from, paren owner, and then the participants. What does this all mean?
So the from section, again, if we're looking at the first row of data, it's indicative as a text message because the sender is listing the phone number being used to send that message. And then for iPhone devices specifically, if you're communicating with another Apple device, it may also list the phone number as well as your backup, which is your Apple ID. So if it can't transmit that message through your phone number, it might default to your iCloud account. And in this case, it's listing both.
All right, and if, for instance, the outgoing recipient or the incoming sender of the text message is in the contacts, would it show up with the person's name, such as Wancho?
Yes, our software will display your contact name as how you save it.
And if there's no contact name, it would just show the phone number?
Phone number or, again, Apple, your iCloud account.
Videos, 16499, capture time, what does that indicate?
So that is when the video, in this case, looks like a video, is captured on the device.
Let's specifically talk about entry 16520. Again, we've discussed that's an instant message and it's incoming rather than outgoing. So that means it came to this phone device?
Yes.
And over to the right of the date and time, which would have been 6:07 p.m., 30 seconds on Christmas 2019, it indicates that it's from a contact named Mo. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Then the
I have
contents
nothing
speak
to
for
do with
itself.
this case.
Going down to 16522, an outgoing instant message at 11:31 p.m., 57 seconds on Christmas 2019. What is the content of that communication?
The content of the message is hide and seek, I shall.
Turning down to 17167, it's an instant message that indicates it's outgoing from this device on January 13th, 2020, 5:01 p.m., 41 seconds, and it's from what is paren owner. Does that mean it's from the device?
Yes.
What's the content of that text message?
Sorry, what was the line item number?
17167.
And bless you and all of you too, I'll get rid of him.
And then the next three are also outgoing messages. What do they indicate as far as content?
Starting with 17168, then I'll be better, followed by 17169, ugh, and 17170, Torres.
Turning now to entry 31103, which is on page 49 of the 59-page PDF. Again, it looks like what we talked about before, the com.camera application gets opened up to be used at 11:12 p.m. 40 seconds. Is that what this data reflects?
Yes.
And then at entry 31107, a video that ends up being captured as img_1062.mov begins at 11:12 p.m. 45 seconds on February 23rd, 2020. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then there does not seem to be any intervening closing of the camera application before we get to 31113.
In that portion, I don't see that information.
And then at 11:23 p.m., 03 seconds on February 23rd, 2020, in entry 31113, a second movie is generated by this device labeled img_1063.mov.
Yes.
I'm going to continue publishing on this exhibit.
I don't know why you would tell your the brother in all caps that you're getting rid of him. Okay, so guys, these are going to be the videos. Again, if you have any trauma, protect your mental health. You're the only one that knows if you are capable of, dealing with this. There is no shame in going away for a couple of minutes and coming back if, this is going to be too much for you. So this is a warning for that.
For everything you've done to me. For everything you've done to me. Fuck you. Fuck you. Stupid. That's my name. Don't wear it on. I can't fucking read, babe. Sarah. Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me. Sarah. Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. That's on you. Sarah, I can't breathe. It's on you. Sarah. Real ransom. Might want to give it for it extra. Because I got this. Sarah. Real ransom. I can't breathe, babe. Oh. That's what I feel like when you jingle me. Sarah. Fuck you. Yeah. You should probably shut the fuck up.
For the record, that was.
That shh is the most haunting part about all of this.
And guys, it's speculation, but I don't think she went upstairs. I think she very much listened, but that's just, again, 100% pure speculation for me. I just think she would have waited. She wanted to hear it. She wanted to be sadistic.
Yeah.
img_1062.mov, now publishing 1063, same respective file name.
And as Reindeer pointed out, all of a sudden there's a pair of flip-flops next to it.
Yeah, she definitely flipped him over. She, manipulated that. She made him, again, that probably sped up the, passing away, because I would be terrified. If Sarah Boone had control of me, I had no way to get out, I would be terrified. He never knows if he can put his hand out, try to get out, if she's going to be there. It's
Yeah. If she's going to attack him again. And you can just hear the malice in her voice. She's done.
Yeah.
No other questions of this witness?
Any cross-examination?
Good afternoon. I believe you stated on direct that you were called to the scene and you were asked to do your analysis out there. Is that correct?
At least a download.
What type of phone was this?
An Apple iPhone XS.
And how were you able to get into the phone? for lack of a better word?
I was provided with the phone's passcode.
Okay. With an Apple phone, without being given that passcode, are you able to get in an Apple phone?
Maybe not necessarily unlock the phone, even though that is an option through some of our advanced tools that is supported. But it can have the ability to download the phone even in a locked state and pull 80-85% of that data.
Is it a much easier process when you have the code?
It's quicker, yes.
And how were you provided that code?
I believe either through Detective Copsel or Connolly at the time, or I may have asked Ms. Boone just to reconfirm the passcode.
And did she give you the passcode?
Yes, somebody did, yes.
Now, on the first exhibit that went up, or when you're talking about the communications or the identifying factors of the phone, one of the things that were identified is dates and times. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. Also, you said it would tell you if the source was incoming or outgoing. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And then you said it could identify either by phone number or name. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. On the examples that you gave us, who was the identifying name as to the outgoing?
Are they going to say Brian Boone did this?
Who was the identifying?
I think he's trying to somehow indicate that the ninjas did it.
Brian Boone's name is on the phone because he paid for it. Because Sarah Boone never paid for a daggone thing in her daggone life.
Well, that's not entirely true because she loves going to the mall
and checking out the dudes
with her own money and checking out the dudes.
Brian, you poor mall dude bastard. Just you didn't catch a break. You didn't catch the white diamond. You caught the baby soft.
I wonder if he met her at the mall because he said he met her in the 90s.
Please say they met at the mall. Let this
I'll
be
laugh.
one of those Jodie Prickeret or whatever the sad ending movies with girl chicks in them.
Name for the outgoing text or calls on this phone.
I think in some of the line items that were shown above, it was just listed as a phone number.
Was there ever a name listed?
A physical name, possibly in other line items, but in those excerpts, it's just by phone number.
Okay. Did you ever see the name Brian Boone?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you see the name Brian Boone?
I believe in one of the iCloud or accounts that was logged into the phone, there was an associated email address.
Okay. Taking that, was it any other place where you would see in a different name as to the outgoing, other than Brian Boone?
Again, there might have been other names listed in other portions of it. But again, those excerpts, it was just either by phone number or, again, with the Apple iPhone listing, the iCloud account.
Do you have a copy of the exhibit up there?
No, not on me.
Can we get that pulled up, please? Are you able to see that?
No, this monitor is not working.
Maybe we approach.
Yes. Have you tried turning it off and turn it on again?
For the love of all that is Cheetos, they're trying to play because Brian paid for the cell phone. Was totally Brian. You've seen Scream. They can totally do that.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
You just missed the 2 videos being played, and now all of a sudden, because Brian is the payer of the phone, it must be him who did it.
I mean, I know they have to use what they can use. The fact patterns are bad, but this pedantic, like, who paid for the phone? Obviously, it wasn't Sarah. I mean, it.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's just gonna make the jury angrier because we can clearly hear it's her drunk out of her mind, and just sent me a few screenshots of jury reactions reported by someone on Twitter, and it seemed like they didn't really take any notes of the cell bride, but then it ended up with two of them visibly uncomfortable with what they saw.
Oh, for the love of you. They're trying to say Brian was controlling Sarah. Brian was
Yeah.
like, leave me alone. Yeah, definitely.
He probably wanted her to have that phone because he had to make sure she picked up the kid, and he knew if she was to get her own phone, she would never pay for it, would never have it open. Yeah, it could have been an alimony application. Come on.
Yeah, were you able to see that? Yes. There's an entry on 12/25/2019. Is that correct?
Are you referencing like the instant message? The instant message.
12/25 to 2019. So 2 months before. This is Aruba again. Everything happens because something happened in the past. I know they have to go with that for the battered spouse, but was she at the hospital because she was treated like a piñata 25 times, or was she just whining on the phone that Jorge had been at her again without any proof?
Yeah, and yeah, he's using a talk boy. He's going to make a reservation at the Grand Hotel next.
Well, yes. Yes.
All right. Does it, as far as participants, what does that show you? What does it tell you?
So it's listing the owner in reference to we'll say the first phone number, 8684. It's referencing that phone number as well as the Gmail account or iCloud account associated with the phone, and then it's listing a physical name. So Brian Boone.
Okay, so it's showing Brian Boone as being the owner of the phone. Is that correct?
For that phone number and or one of the participants in that message conversation.
Did you recall seeing any other name associated with that phone number other than Brian Boone?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
All right, when you did the analysis of this, and you would look for the participants and get that information, match it up with the phone number. Then in certain cases, they will show you the owner name because you said Apple is very detailed in some of their applications. So did you ever see another name associated with this account other than Brian Boone?
There was another iCloud account logged in on the physical phone.
Okay.
There was no name attached.
There was no name attached. Oh, bless you. Now, when you're identifying these sources as being either outgoing or incoming sources, and is that basically telling you what device is being used?
It's not indicative of a specific device other than we know outgoing. Obviously the source is the phone that we.
They want to treat him as a hostile witness. They have alluded to that. So they are going to try and shift the blame to Brian, which I see no way that anyone will buy that theory.
Well, I think they're trying to make it. I don't think they're blaming Brian. It's just they want to try to minimize the stupid cell phone stuff, which it's so dumb because, okay, it was Brian's phone, but she made the video. I don't know how you get around that by any means. Who cares if it was Brian's
extracted that data from incoming messages? It does not let us know if the message was made through a Samsung Galaxy or another iPhone.
Okay. What identifying information do you get at that time?
In regards to receiving a message?
Yes.
In this case, or what's displayed there, it's going to give us the content of the message. It's going to give us the date and time that the message was sent or received. And again, like in your phone, it does depict either through a small notification arrows indicating ingoing or outgoing. So it's just displaying that version in text up there.
Okay. And then from there, it's basically telling you the number that it came from. Is that correct?
Yes, like in reference to that top row, it's saying that message came from that phone number Again, the top line item, last 4 digits is 8684. And then it's also listing the message participants.
It's not telling you the person who sent the message, is it?
Correct. Just that it's originating from a phone number.
So if 2 people or more people had access to a phone, you wouldn't, from this information, you wouldn't be able to tell who actually sent the message on any given time. Is that correct?
No, I'm not a fly on the wall, and I can't see who's physically typing out messages.
Thank you, ma'am. No further questions.
That's
Hey,
what
redirect
they're trying to
examination.
get at.
You understand just your subjective interpretation given the context of conversations.
Yes.
And if photographs or videos are taken during these conversations, that could be indicative of who is behind the phone device as well.
Based on sound and visuals, that it does help.
Thank you.
Can this witness be released?
As far as the state is concerned, yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am, you're released. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take
Maybe I
any
can
other witnesses
understand
or
this
evidence
better
at this
now.
time.
Not the morning presentation.
Okay, all right. Members of our jury, it is 12:21. At this point in time, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break. I'm going to ask you to report back here at 2 o'clock at 12A, the Orange County Courthouse. I'm going to give you a similar instruction, the same instruction I read to you last week. Jurors, you must not conduct any investigation on your own. This includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all to get information related to this case or the people and places involved in this case. This applies whether you are in the courthouse, at home, or anywhere else. You must not visit places mentioned in the trial or use the internet to look at maps or pictures to see any place discussed during the trial. Jurors, do not watch local news or read local newspapers. Jurors must not have discussions of any sort with friends, family members, or even your fellow jurors about the case or the people and places involved. So do not let anyone make comments to you or ask questions about the trial. I want to stress again that just as you must not talk about this case face-to-face, you must not talk about this case by using an electronic device. You must not use phones, computers, or other electronic devices to communicate. Do not send or accept any messages related to this case or your jury service. Do not discuss this case or ask for advice by any means at all, including posting information on an internet website, chat room, or blog. With that, members of the jury, we'll be in recess. We'll see you back here at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I thank you for your time. Go ahead, thank you. State, anything we need to address before we adjourn to the lunch hour?
Yes, sir. Your Honor, just briefly, as far as the scheduling of events this afternoon, the next witness we would be intending on calling would be Detective Copsel.
That's Detective Goodhair, right?
I think so.
Copsel? Oh, and I just to spoil all the fun, I will be getting some Imodium, and Marissa will be joining so Mo can go pick up her kids. We will have full coverage as always, even if my deliberate old body can't hold up for streaming. So you will be
get some rest.
Get the full service as you are intended to. When I end this, I'll redirect you all over to Mo's stream. There will be a stream on my channel, but just go give Mo a little love. We're trying to get her to 4,000 subscribers. We are moving slowly, but I think we are like 40 people away from it. So please go show her a lot of love, because when old man can't keep up, the young ladies will take over.
Thank you.
Counsel, I apologize. Just the publication of the interviews in this case would be approximately 3 hours in length, not to mention any direct testimony and cross-examination testimony. So that's likely to take us beyond the 5 o'clock hour. I don't know if we can work late to accomplish it all.
I'm inclined to work late. It's just if they're on board with that.
Okay.
If we need to go after 5 o'clock due to that presentation, we can. How long do you anticipate going? If you had to ballpark it.
I would think it would be 4 to 5 hours, depending on the length of the cross.
4 to 5 hours?
What about in your side of the ledger?
I think my direct exam questions will probably be 30 to 40 minutes.
But the interview video is just 2 hours long, and the one outside of the house is 31 minutes. We've covered this.
Yeah, but I think
he's
there's
talking
going to
about,
be
like, direct cross, all that. Like he's putting it all into one, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. How long do you anticipate your cross-examination being, Counselor? Mr. Henderson?
Judge, not too long, 30, 35 minutes.
Okay.
If that, but here's the only concern that I have.
Yes, sir.
We have one juror who has said and told us during board diet, as long as we're getting out of here at 5, my scheduling is okay.
Thank you, Brandon.
After
I will.
that causes a problem.
I'll try to eat some potato
That's the
chips
only
as well.
concern I
They are high salt.
Okay.
If we could let them know early, if that's the plan, so she might be able to make some arrangements. Probably
Judging the other component, we've got some people flying in, and we've got experts that we're trying to coordinate. So the sooner we know the logistics of when they're going to rest the case, we talked late last week that we felt like they were going to end their case at the end of business today, but it sounds like they may pushed it more.
I think step one is conferring with our jury if they're amenable to working past 5. I do recall the one juror with childcare concerns. If we go slightly over, we'll have to address that when we get closer to it, and maybe a situation where cross-examination may have to be left for tomorrow. But that's something that we'll need to discuss when we get closer to it. Anything else, State? Anything else, defense? All right, we'll see you all 2 o'clock. Wait, yes, sir.
This is using CDs, I believe. We've got flash drives to admit into evidence instead of CDs. We didn't bring the capability to transfer those to CDs.
Response?
Is that a declaration, or is there?
I mean, it sounds like that's what Mr. Owens' intent is for the purposes of submitting evidence.
The one reason I would suggest not introducing USBs is because they're rewritable and they can be manipulated and destroyed by the jury, or not that anybody would do it intentionally, parts of the court.
I did buy some fast food Saturday night, and since then I've had bad stomach, but I don't know. It was good. I got chili poppers.
Ooh.
But I'll be on the electrolytes, Imodium, and some potato chips on my couch tonight because I'm tired of
sort
the
of
toilet.
can happen when something is not blocked and put onto a physical hard piece of wax.
Mr. Owens?
We'll see what we can do here locally. There's a FedEx. I don't know if they would be able to do that. FedEx is a block away. We'll check with them at lunch.
I would check with them. I agree with the state's concerns as to manipulation or editing of anything that may be contained in a USB drive. Not to say that that's going to happen, but it certainly preserves the evidence moving forward rather than being a editable form, be it in a USB drive.
We'll go talk to them.
All right, very good. Okay, thank you all very much. We'll see you at 2 o'clock. Court's off the record.
Well, only 2 witnesses today, but what 2 witnesses? And we'll get one more, but 50 witnesses cut down to 13 witnesses.
No.
And the state will rest after this one. Can be today, can be tomorrow, depending on the jury. But very interesting to see how I think they're going to attack the detective. I think he's going to treat her like he treated the DNA lady, and I don't think that's going to help.
No, he's going to do the same thing he did in that hearing, I betcha.
Yeah, and she doesn't match energy, so she's going to be cool and aloof, and he's trying to elicit you know, unlawfully brought her in, attack her character, things like that. And I think she's just going to look cool and unbothered, and I think that's not going to work out well for the defense, but
no, it's gonna be crappy. But I will be on the couch watching it on my tablet while trying to emulate a 1400 what's the watering belly disease they got back then?
dysentery, cholera.
Yes, I will be reenacting a dysentery attack on the city of London in year 1400. Mo will be taking over with the help of the lovely Marissa. Marissa, you can I have it set up so you can just go push in the StreamYard, so I don't have to send you a link. And the rest of you, please go show Mo a little love and subscribe to her channel. She's only like 40 away from 4,000, and we really, really want to push her to those 4,000, because at 4,000, she will then tell Mr. Mo, well, I have 4,000, I need more wigs.
Well, at 4,000, I'll probably do a stream, because I may have gotten a life-size dingus Lego, and of course, I need to fix my office and clean things up and declutter before I'm allowed to open it. But,
yeah,
I need Mr. Mo to keep my chaos in order.
Both channels will be running the show, but Mo will be the one who can pull up chats and stuff like that. And again, just go show Mo a little love, because I feel like I have to spew, but it just doesn't go further than the feeling. What a
Oh, I
feeling.
hate that. Baker
Yeah,
has
you
morning
just
sickness.
want to go all ham and just get the out of the system, sleep in the shower under the hot water and just die. But we did 3 hours and 48 minutes, and I still seem kind of coherent. I'm not. The rest of you, please go subscribe to Mo, and thank you so much
Thank
for
you
watching.
guys so much. And thank you, Jamie, for helping out, and Baker for having me on. And I will try to run this like I run everything. So intentionally
wall.
good, unintentionally chaotic.
It's going to be
Marissa
a lot
will
of
be
video today, so it's fine.
Marissa will be here as well to. So it'll be people yelling about Baker is a lazy bum, but that's how I like it.
What exhibit are you referring to? I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor. All right, 100.
100.
Because it is 100%
100%.
correct.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
All right, I'm in love.
Go back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this, did you, whether it's true or not, believe that Mr. Randolph had slept with your wife?
I wouldn't care.
You wouldn't have cared?
No.
Did you believe he had slept with your wife?
No.
Did you believe he slept with your mother-in-law?
Probably did. Everybody has.
So there.
Everybody has.